So welcome to another Indie Game Spotlight. And today we are joined by Tony from Dystopian Dawn. Thank you for taking the time to join us today, Tony.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
Well, it's absolutely fantastic to have you here. And we're going to start off with our typical question, which is what inspired you to create Dystopian Dawn?
Probably brain damage. So I've been gaming since 1980 because I'm old. Anyway, over the years, I've always been the guy trying new systems. I've played more systems than I can even remember. I've ran more systems than most people have even heard of. And it's not a brag. It's just part of my insanity. Several years back, every time we try a new game, I was always coming up with house rules to, make them better, right? And one of my buddies, a longtime gamer, went, "Why don't you just make your own game?" And I went, "Shit. Well, I'm sorry. Can I cuss?"
Yes. You're fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm retired Army, so it's part of my, it's part of my blood.
Absolutely fine.
I went, well, I don't have an excuse. The gauntlet was thrown, so I sat down and I threw together, nearly 200 pages. I had this really clever game. It was called Chaos, spelled with a K because, it's clever.
They're very Warhammer, that approach. Yeah.
And it was a very sound system, but it was incredibly crunchy. And at the end of it, it was just another sword and sorcery game. So I threw it in the trash and completely started over. I sat back and went, I don't want to make another D&D. I don't want that. There's 10,000 flavors of sword and sorcery games. I granted, it's probably the quickest way to make a buck because it's the most popular genre. But I mentioned I'm brain addled. So I sat back and I thought about all the things that I've loved over the years as a longtime nerd, the different genres I enjoyed playing, the movies I love. And I was like, okay, why don't I start with the setting first? So Planet of the Apes, Logan's Run, Escape from New York, Mad Max,
those are good. Those ones are great ones to start with anyway. I mean, they're classic, aren't they? They post-apocalyptic or dystopian sort of, Logan's Run. That's actually quite a frightening sort of future in my mind. And same with Mad Max.
Read the book.
Yeah, very different takes. Yeah.
The book is much darker. I'm a huge fan. And then one of the biggest influences from when I was a kid was Thundar the Barbarian, which is still an amazing cartoon. So anyway, I sat back and I was like, how do I throw all this into a stew? I was like, well, post-apocalypse. I blow up the world. Done. I was like, okay, cool. So I sat back and I scribbled out the storyline. So 500 years after the apocalypse, what does the world look like? I was like, well, I want magic in this. So how do I bring this in there? So I wove in how the Fae returned, why they came back, what they were doing, and how they brought magic with them. And then I put out the Player's Guide and the Game Master's Guide, which were originally one book. And a buddy of mine, who saw my printout of my Word manuscript, looked at it and said, man, I am not going to read that thing. Huh. Well, you suck. So I split it up and I was like, all right, I need to break everything into player, GM. So it actually helped immensely. So now each book is roughly 200 pages, but I was able to flush them out a little more. So the Player's Guide is all the core rules. Hardcover, shameless advertising.
That looks wonderful.
Lovely. That looks awesome.
Yeah.
And the soft cover has reddish with pictures and whatnot, because soft covers are less expensive to print, so I can put more art on them. Anywho, so then that's the Player's Guide. And the Game Master's Guide. So
lovely.
Blowing up moon, and there's the Earth. All right, so there's my goal.
So your moon gets fractured, does it?
Yes. So part of the fun of the game is, again, so everything you need to play the game is in the player's guide. The magic, all the core mechanics, gear, character types, nationalities, blah, blah, blah. All of that is in the player's guide. The GM's guide has all of the tables a GM needs for combat, all of your reaction tables, your commerce, extended gear. So like the player's guide stops at what I call mid-tech, which is like crossbows, right? And then mid-tech through high-tech and super-tech is where we get into, like our current age and the future and whatnot. That kind of stuff is in the GM's guide because the players don't need it because they're not going to start with it. Ha ha. There's also I call it a creature catalog, which is what I named my book when I put it out. In the GM's guide, consequences for abusing magic and stuff like that, as well as 4 starter scenarios. So I figured I wanted to make it as user-friendly as possible, and I write everything from a GM standpoint. Yeah. So I took it on the road for about 1.5 years, beating the living hell out of it before I published it. I played with people I didn't know, age groups from 17 to 60. And I can't stress that to anyone who's thinking about making a game enough. Play it. Get out there and play test everything before you put it out there.
Yeah.
And the other tip is nothing will ever be perfect. There's no such thing. So just jump. See, this was the ones that are coming out.
No more changes.
I know. No more changes.
Oh, yeah, that'll happen.
Yeah.
So this one I'm quite happy with. This is the creature catalog that's available this month. I'm waiting on my final test print to come in, and I had fun with this because we're trying to get it into the camera there. I can't tell.
Oh, that's just cool. You've got the double page spread, haven't you, across? I like that. That's lovely.
It's kind of my homage to the original Monster Manual from Dungeons & Dragons, but with, my creatures and the reddened sky of Dystopian Dawn, of course. So anyway, so that was why I created it. There's so many systems out there, and most often we ended up, my group, we ended up playing GURPS most of the time, 3rd edition, because of the flexibility. But there's only a couple of us that are willing to GM it because some people are afraid of reading. Anyway, GURPS has a lot of flexibility, but as the GM, you need to know how that flexibility works.
Yeah, it's amazing the number of times I've heard people say, "But I don't want to read," and you think, why not?
I think you're in the wrong hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you only need to look at all of our fantasy books and all of our sci-fi books. Yep. You just look at that. There's a wealth of information out there on different things. But the one thing that ties it all together is you need to read. And I think that's where, if I look at modern day games, some of them are too inspired by films rather than books. And I think the books tend to tie everything together more. So the fact, when you're talking about reading, I can fully comprehend that. And as you say, the book of Logan's Run goes into so much more depth
and
than,
so much
than
darker.
the film.
Yeah.
21 years old, not 30.
Yeah.
My wife actually found the other 2 for me. I didn't know there were 3 books. My wife found them, I think, about 5 years ago. It was a Christmas gift. I opened them up, and at first I thought it was like a hack, someone had written after. No, it's the original writer. And read through them. The second one's really good. The third one, but they delve more into what the landscape and kind of what's under the surface. So they were still interesting reads. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I love to read. I'm actually back on a classic kick now. I'm on Princess of Mars, Edgar Rice Burroughs. And I think I just wrapped up I think it was last year I read all of Lee Falk's Phantom books.
I don't think I've actually read those. I'll add those to my list.
Ask me later. I'll send you the name of the company. They actually, I think it's an Avon print, but I have a company that I go to they re-released them in like, they're not paperback, but they're not comic book. They're that whatever that format is, the 5x9, I think.
Oh yeah. Oh, we'll have a look.
So you can find them on eBay, but they're rather expensive. But I found them through another printing company.
Yeah. Fantastic. So, when we look, then you've got your inspiration for Dystopian Dawn. So, do you want to take us through the sort of storyline, if you like, or the build up to what happens at the beginning of your game, so that we can then start delving into the mechanics? So it'd be great to find out a little bit about what happens to that moon and where people start off in the journey for Dystopian Dawn.
Well, it starts with weaponized hallucinogens. No, I'm kidding. So what? It's actually funny you should mention that. So in the player's guide, I give a general over the view, common perception of how the world ended, and it's completely wrong.
But it's what it's what the players or the characters that the players, that's what they believe.
And in the GM's guide, I give the truth.
Nice.
So with enough room for the GM to play back and forth and add some filler. Everything I write, like I said, is GM friendly. So I never put a dead end, this is it, period. I always write, here's a concept, here's some if-thens. Yeah. Here's some ideas on how you can continue on in another way. Because I despise railroading GMs. I always have. If you can't handle your players going off into La La Land, you really shouldn't be in that seat. Because that's part of being a good GM, is going, hey, here's a few breadcrumbs. Follow them. Yay, we're back on plot, but we still had fun. So anyway, give you an idea. Dun, dun, dun. Now it's reading time.
I love this. I'm waiting for you to start telling us a story, and I'll be like,
excellent.
Once upon a time in Dystopian Dawn, everything went mental.
All right. The sun is barely visible through the perpetual red haze. Freak storms of lightning and hail pepper the landscape at random. Once great civilizations now lie in ruin and decay all around and beneath your feet. No one truly knows how it all came to pass, as no recorded history remains. If there are answers, they lie in the wastelands, where great cities once stood atop countries and continents. Now, all that remains is rubble and myth. So that's how it starts in the player's guide. And I also include, it's about 1 page, maybe a page and a half, a short story called They All Met in a Bar. And it's a druid, a barbarian, a wizard, a mutant, scoundrel, and an engineer. So each of the 6 character types. And it gives their viewpoint from the character type class, as to how things ended, how they despise each other. Like the wizards and druids hate each other because of the types of magic they use and how magic is used. Excuse me. Engineers tolerate wizards because wizards are technomancers for the most part. Their wizards are technomancy through necromancy. That side the engineers don't really care for. The technomancy they don't mind. It's a paying gig, right? Druids are all about nature. Engineer has they get out of here. So that type of conversation, but in different voices of the characters themselves. And then, of course, the barbarian, it ends with, well, why are you here? I was told there'd be beer.
Yeah.
I can fully get that. So my question about this then would be, would you class your starting areas, or would you class your sort of setting as a points of light? So you've got sort of small pinpoints of civilization for where characters start, or is it really built up?
In between. So what I was going to say, here's in the GM's guide, it's the alpha and the omega.
Mm-hmm.
And this gives you enough of a chronology of, while there are many theories about how and what caused the end of the world, in the player's guide, this chapter provides the actual events that led to the world's downfall. Again, I'm not going to read all that, but it was a culmination of, I had to include the rogue comet flying by because, Thunder the Barbarian. and dome cities and all kinds of, so pretty much every sci-fi trope you can think of that went wrong, and diametrically opposed technophobes versus the technocrats, if you will, and how they converge with corrupt governments. I realized that was an oxymoron. Right in the middle of it. Ooh, I got political. Sorry.
That's okay.
Trying to hold on to power as the world falls apart. The final straw was the moon shattering, satellites exploding because tidal waves and everything else, and civilization just crumbled. And once the wars finally stopped, when there were no more bombs to drop, and so people ran away, hid, and so what you're stepping into is 500 years later. So over that 500 years, humans eventually came out of the vaults or the shelters or caves or wherever the heck they were hiding, and they came back to a world of machines, magic, and mutants. And of course, the first thing we do as humans is we carve out our territory, right?
Yep.
So they created 6 territories. Now, the world, which was phase 1, the world is North America, or what's left of it, because I blew a lot of it up, especially California. I used to live there. So
no actual reason for doing stuff like that at all, I expect. That was just happened.
No, it was pure spite. I left California in the 80s and didn't look back. But it was a lot of fun in the 80s. That's what makes me so mad. It was so much fun in the 80s.
I expect there was a lot of things that were fun in the 80s that we all miss.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they rise up and they create 6 territories. I don't feel like flipping through the book. Anyway, so there's 6 territories in what's left of North America. This goes to your question about how do you start. So there's Sumerica, which is up north, which is kind of Vikings and Druids, don't you know, low tech and fantasy type stuff. Also, as the books progress, you'll find out that's where the Fae are, because it is the least irradiated part of the planet. There's a little place called the Deep Woods, but you don't actually find it until Vikings and Robots, which was my 7th source book that's also coming out this month, because it's secret. And the actual forest is alive, and it keeps them hidden, and elves are not kind. My elves are not Tolkien elves. My elves will shoot you in the face. Anywho, so that's Sumerica, low tech. Then you get right below them is New Rome, which is what's left of the West Coast and areas. And New Rome is, if someone watched a bunch of old black and white Roman movies where everyone speaks like this, over the top, and read The Art of War. That's pretty much New Rome. They're mid to high tech, but everything has had a flair of the old Roman movies, even how they speak and their architecture. But they are the second most technological advanced of the city-states, and they are the most militant. The rumor is that it's funny. I start in the very beginning. I think it started in the player's guide, dropping hints about them expanding. Well, when I launched Cowboys and Mutants earlier this year, you find out it's not a rumor. They actually started finding abandoned New Roman outposts in Alamex, another territory. And so it wasn't false. And it actually leads up to, I hope the players stop this war in Vikings and Robots. If not, oops. But luckily the players during playtesting did catch the giant MacGuffins and went, oh shit, we should stop this. So the world was safe. Anyway, then I've tried to go down. So down is Alamex, which is the south. Think Firefly without spaceships.
Okay.
Or if you've ever seen the really cheesy movies Oblivion, not the Tom Cruise ones. Most people don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, I'll do this. All right. We're there. And then right above that in the center is the second most irradiated part of the known world, called the Nether. And the Nether is mostly blasted rock. It's crags and high radiation, toxic chemicals. It is definitely the wastelands. If you can survive there. And then you move into the Motor City Madhouse of Haven, which is, they're all about the gasoline. So these are my gearheads, but they only focus on like combustion. Okay?
Yeah.
So take the Smokers from Waterworld and the Society of Idiocracy.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So that's what Haven is, and that's what the 8th Source Adventure book, which was the last one planned for Phase 1. It's called Death Race Coast to Coast, and that's actually where it starts.
Nice.
And then you have Paradisium I saved for last, which is the East Coast, and it is the most irradiated part, especially the Upper Peninsula, is so radiated that only mutants can live there. And then on the southern tip, and that became a running joke with my map. Anyway, is one area called Coastal, which is a mix of wizards and mutants and such and engineers. But it's because the radiation level is tolerable. As soon as you get up in the other areas, you absorb rads daily. And if you're not a mutant, eventually that's going to make you sick. You're going to need to get medication. If you're a mutant, you might just mutate again, and yay. Because radiation actually heals mutants in this game.
I like that's nice.
So there's the world, if you will, and I purposely made each one vastly different by design. So Paradisium is high tech, high secret. They live underground, and on purpose, I didn't explain their culture until Time Warped, the 3rd Source Adventure book, where I go into great detail because there were so many notes. Because when I sat down and started writing all this, I was like, if I try to put all of this information that I have for each of these territories into one book, I'm looking at, an 800-page book just for a player's guide, and that's insane. So I started splitting it out by zones, if you will. And that's how what I do is I create, see if I have it here. I do. I have this is my first.
It's like Blue Peter. Here's one I made earlier. Hey.
Nice.
That's cool.
So my only issue there is the print. They moved the pages, so I had to order a new one. So they put an extra page. So I don't know if you can see the.
Yeah.
These are supposed to be on either side. So anyway, what I do with what I call a source adventure book, it's not just a campaign. So what I do is I expand the lore of it, and I pick an area or areas, and I focus on that, expanding the lore all around it. I drop in a bunch of different subplots. I jump in. Here is a large cinematic overarching story that you can use. Or, again, GM friendly, well, I just want this piece, and I'm going to drop it in my existing campaign. Okie dokie. That's how I write them. So it's kind of a setting / campaign / do whatever the hell you want with it book. And the my goal or my plan, once the first 3 books actually sold, because when I jumped into this, I was terrified. The first book was Danger Zone, which is more of a campaign than anything else, and I'll admit it's crudely written because I threw it together. It was actually the campaign I ran while playtesting. Anywho, my brain digressed because next year I actually have a plan in my head to return to Danger Zone. Anyway. So Danger Zone introduced 6 areas in the Nether, and it's actually really funny. Each of them are different. You've got the surfers, you've got the thugs, the gang members, the cannibalistic mutants, everything 80s trope, it's there. And they're going after the Warlord of the Barons, which is in the middle of the Nether, is hell-bent on reclaiming something called tourism. But they don't actually know what it means.
That actually leads me to a question, because you've talked about these 6 different areas.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I bounced.
It's brilliant. My question is more about how isolated from each other are these areas, or is there sort of trade between them, or is it very much sort of, how does all of that work? So, because by the sounds of it, they're very different culturally. So how does that work when you're talking about your different areas?
Well, I wrote that in there on purpose. So each of the areas, I actually write up their commerce, their trade, who they trade with. All of that stuff's in the GM's guide. There's a little bit of in the player's guide, but it's expanded. So each of the I made 6 territories and 3 provinces. So you start off with 18 locations in the game, plus 4 adventures. That's right off the bat. I did that because I didn't want to oversaturate right off the bat. With each source adventure book and each adventure module that I put out, that adds new areas. And I also update the maps. And the maps I always have for free on my website. So if you want the most current, it's there. So some of them do trade. And each of them actually has a different system. Suberica, for instance, only does barter. They have nothing to do with any form of currency. They think it's a waste of time. You can do a thing for me and I'll give you a chicken, right? Go dig my well. Things like that. It's very simple. Then you have New Rome, which is the only one that actually has a currency. They have minted coins with the face of the emperor in denominations of, I think it's 1, 5, and 50 or something like that. And obviously those are the most valuable coin because it's the only coin. Everyone else uses a chit system, kind of like Waterworld, where it's a stamped chunk of something. And depending on where you're at is the material that the chit is made out of and the value. So for example, Coastal, which is in Paradisium, Florida, most of theirs are made out of seashells. So outside of Coastal, they are worthless because they break. They're crap. Nobody wants them. In Alamex, where you have gunsmiths and blacksmiths, it's actual stamped metal. So the Alamex chit is worth more. Then you have the Nether chit, which is whatever scrap metal they can find. And usually it's rusty, so it's right above Coastal. And then you have the Haven chit, which is usually like, leftovers from license plates or something, scrap metal they didn't need, but it is stamped. However, Haven is also dirty as hell. So a lot of times they'll change numbers and weights. So it goes, I think it's New Rome, the New Rome dollar, then I think it's Alamex chit, and it goes down from there. So anywho, Paradisium does not have a currency. They will barter with people that go there. But if you are a mutant from Paradisium, you came from either Terminexus or Seclusion Falls. These are mutant-only locations. They have a credit system for those that were born there. And a lot of times, you start adventuring because you're in debt. Sorry. Sounds like real life, damn it. So that's kind of I'm really glad you asked that. I sat back, and the funny part was when I first, the first shoot, almost 2 years of me taking this out on the convention, running online, really wasn't a big deal. There was a lot of trade, sometimes there was currency, but over the last year, it was mainly when I introduced Cowboys and Mutants, because I introduced a rail line and a telegraph and general stores and all kinds of stuff. It really took off, and I still wasn't thinking about currency because for me, it's a survival game. I mean, the biggest part should be, and I write that in the rules, lore. What happened? What's under my feet? And that should be the big part, is survival.
The survival brings the focus in, doesn't it? Because unlike we're all here we are today in the UK talking to you over in the US, in a post-apocalyptic world, that wouldn't happen. You are focused on the here and now, what's immediately around you. It makes your world smaller, doesn't it?
It does. And that was in the player's guide. I actually have a blurb right up front about all of our idiosyncrasies, norms, issues, isms. None of that shit matters. Right? No. The world ended, and all of that stuff was left behind. What matters now is survival. It doesn't. You can be rainbow-hued, purple, green, 14-eyed. None of that matters. And that's one thing that's actually bothered me about a lot of modern gamers, is they inject themselves or their own insecurities into it. I was like, that's not what gaming is. Gaming is supposed to be fun.
Escape. Yeah, it's supposed to be fun.
Escapism. You're playing something that's not you.
Yeah.
Right?
It's stretching the imagination. It's actually exercising your brain, putting yourself out of your comfort zone. It's about taking a character, wearing it, and taking it out for a run. It's you're completely right. It's about that expanding the mind, isn't it? With gaming, it's about being something you're not, which I think is really important.
Yeah.
And I did a video not too long ago on I'm starting it. Sorry, the fan just kicked on and something moved. Squirrel. Anyway.
It's all right. Our cats have decided to have a party in the background.
I never know what the temperature of my own house is going to be. My wife controls that. So one minute I'm freezing, the next minute I'm hot. And anyway. So when the fan kicks on, it's like, what just happened? Anyway, I don't even remember what the heck I was saying. Squirrel.
So
video. I did a video on basic GMing. And I'm going to start doing, it's going to be called GM Bites. And I'm going to try and keep it like around 5 minutes for each episode.
Be cool.
Where I just kind of give a scenario building, world building, I don't know, your mom, whatever, little minor topics. But the first one is roughly 10 minutes because I kind of go over the crux of gaming and how it should be fun and what makes a good versus bad GM kind of traits.
Yeah.
We'll watch those.
Yeah, I found that any system that focuses on real world is only relevant then. And the moment the world changes, it becomes no longer relevant. You even take films that are set, games that are set within the world, things like Call of Cthulhu. Mm-hmm. And even they divorce themselves from real world politics. You have the tropes of politics, but not the specifics. And I think that's a clever way of doing it to make sure the longevity of that game survives the ever-shifting culture of politics and the world. So I think that's a fantastic approach. And Vicky, I'll hand back over to you to move us on to the next bit.
So we're nicely moving into the characters that you're going to have. So you mentioned your different character classes earlier. Do you count them as classes?
Because you talked about type, because I had to be completely different.
Yeah. So there was barbarian. You had your sort of technomancer. Now, I quite like that because it reminds me of the sort of Babylon 5 sort of technomancers, which I thought were really cool when I watched Babylon 5 when I was I was first with Dean. And so I really like the sound of that. Barbarian went through that. You've got your engineers. Tell me a little bit about your engineers. That intrigues me.
How about I'll give you a gist of each of the six. So
a
barbarian,
great.
A catch-all for fighter types.
Yeah.
So any person at arms is a barbarian. It could run and what I do with each character type is I include 3 archetypes. These are not kits or anything. It's nothing more than a generic description that I throw out there for an idea. And I make that very clear. These aren't kits. These aren't anything you have to take. These are ideas of. So like for the barbarian, you could be a mercenary, former soldier, savage, etc., etc. Then you move into the engineers, which engineer you customize. Engineer can be anything from a blacksmith to a rocket scientist. If your stats and your skills are high enough, you go. And so build and repair is a big part of the game. So you have, I think there's 4 tiers of build and repair based on technological difficulties. So every item in the game has a TF, a tech factor. And that's how much tech is actually a stat in this game, one of the 7. If your tech isn't this high, you don't understand it. For example, the barbarian picks up a crescent wrench. It's a good metal club. The engineer walks by and says, "Get the hell out of my tool chest, you idiot." Right? So it's kind of those fun. And it's a lot of fun in the GM because you can start describing like a toaster, but you're describing what it would look like to a Neanderthal, if you will. Metal, shiny, springy, thingy, brr, brr, brr. And before you know it, your players go, "You ass, it's a toaster." And it's funny, right? And everyone gets a good laugh out of it. And it adds that immersion. All right, so there's the barbarian. There's the engineer. And engineers, they don't have to just have one niche. You can go blacksmith, gunsmith, steampunk, electrical, combustion, radiation, or all the above. So the engineer is the person it's the MacGyver. You're constantly scavenging the wasteland going, does this fit? Nope. All right. Shit, that exploded. Dun, 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 dun. Right. That's the engineer. The engineer is all about kind of repairing the world without magic. There's a way to rebuild. And the biggest problem the engineer sees are people.
Yeah.
And then you have
always a pain.
right? Mutants. So mutant is the only character type that's also seen as a race, but it's not. There's only one race in the game, human.
Yeah.
There are multiple nationalities. Dun, dun, dun. So if you're from Alamax versus Paradisium, you have stat bonuses. So you pick one of those regions before you make your character because there's adjustments based on your geographical start.
So that actually leads me to where I was going to say, do some of your types sort of lean more to where they actually start? So if I was going to create a character, now you mentioned the stats and that you had 7 stats. So I think what I'm going to do is draw you back to those 7 stats. Do you do stats first, or do you do your starting area first? If I, as a character, as a player, what would I do?
Well, let me streamline the classes real quick, the character types, and then I'll come back to character creation.
Perfect.
Because my character creation system is very different than anyone else's on purpose.
Brilliant.
All right, so engineer, mutant. There's 2 types of mutants, because mutants are just mutated humans. They're just humans. You have the mutant that's all about the atom, getting more and more radiation. I want, look, a 3rd arm, right? And then you have the psionicist, where the brain has.
That's more mental, yeah.
Well, there's also some physical, but only mutants can be psionicists because it is a mutation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then druid. Druids are your shamans, your nature priests, right? Ta-da, simple. All right. They run the gamut of the local healer to the crazy witch in the woods to the guy who only talks to animals and is covered in squirrel poop.
With the druids, does that mean that they actually want to reduce the sort of they want to reduce the radiation in the world and stuff like that? Yeah, that's cool.
They are anti-tech.
Yeah.
Druids can't deal with anything that's above tech factor, like I think 3 or 4. So pretty much, I don't know, it stops somewhere around a club. Right. If it's not, they can't also, that's part of the character type. If it's, they can't wear anything that's synthetic. So because it goes against the very
natural.
Core. Yeah. When I get to the magic system, it'll make more sense. Also why they guys hate each other. So there's the druid. What am I missing? Scoundrel. So scoundrel is your catch-all. It's everything from your thief to your treasure hunter to your thrill seeker. It's not, I'm just a thief, I'm just a rogue. It's whatever. Your Han Solo is a scoundrel, right? We all know this.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's your character type. Could be the schmoozer. Maybe you've got, all about appeal and talking people out of their stuff. The scoundrel's big thing is, why should I build something or go out and do hard work when someone else already has it and I could just kind of reacquire it? It's all about the comforts in life. It doesn't nothing to do with the politics. The magic doesn't matter. It's all about, I want to make my life more comfortable and have fun. And then, of course,
totally relate.
Then the wizard. Wizards are, we should be in charge because you're all stupid. Yep, that's
my favorite class. Yes.
And wizards are they run the gamut from technomancers to necromancers. So the big difference, I'll get into the druids and the wizards right now. So there are, I guess I go to the magic. Shit. Only had 1 cup of coffee, so the brain's not fully firing yet. All right.
You know something. I think that's what we've done there is a nice overview of the classes. Mm-hmm. I think if you walk us through the character creation, and then we'll naturally move into then your because I understand it's all so integrated, isn't it? It's like you then want to delve into the magic system so I think if we go through character creation, we will then naturally flow through how that comes out, and then we can naturally move on to magic systems.
So one thing I did, trying to land the camera. So there's a quick down, real simple in the player's guide. That's how you make a character. Easy. So character creation, unlike most games where I sit down, come up with a story, I have a concept of a character type in mind, throw it out the window.
Okay.
So you can have a concept, but the dice aren't always going to let you keep it. Have a nice day. I purposely built the hardest part into this entire system. There is flexibility throughout everything. Customization is built into character creation, magic, creatures. Everything is all about, flexibility and customization. So no two characters will ever be the same. I've been running this for 3.5 years now. I have yet to see two even same character types be remotely the same. And that makes me very happy. That was by design.
It's fantastic.
So how it works is you start off, you pick where you're from, right? But you know what? Let's make life easy. So Tony stays on target. I just gave you. All right. Step 1. Where are you from? All right. So you choose your territory and your province. Usually, you can have them choose the province later on if, it really doesn't matter. But the territory they need to pick because there's stat bonuses. So like, for example, Alamex, the Old West, you get a +1 to your fitness, but a -1 to your appeal because you're a bit more rough and rugged, right? Talking ain't what you do. All right. So forth and so on. Jot that down, and all of your stats start at 4. There are 7 stats. Agility, hand-eye coordination, right? Look, a character sheet. Holy crap. Appeal, which is anything from your physical appearance to your charisma, your ability to shit talk. Are you a beautiful bastard or are you a hideous, wonderful, nice person? Fit is fitness. It's your overall physical well-being. Constitution. Yeah. Int is intellect. Dirt. MN is mana. Mana is how in touch you are with mystic ley lines and animals. Mana obviously is the bread and butter for druids. ST is strength. All melee falls under strength. And last is TC, tech or technology. Tech is your comprehension of things with molecular structures and moving parts. So the crux of the characters, each of those start with 4 plus whatever bonus or penalty you got from your nationality. So there's your start point. 4 to 6 in this game is human average. So right off the bat, you generally start average, right? The max a stat could ever go is 20. And when I get into how the skills tie in, it'll actually make sense where the math goes. All right, step 2, what are your base attribute stats? So you assign the 4, like I said, plus your adjustments, then you roll 3d6. And then you take that 3d6, this is your stat pool, and you allocate that however you want amongst your 7 attributes. So if you rolled 13, nice. You take those 13 points and go, I want 2 here, 5 here, however you want. Starting character cannot have a stat above 10. So you got to give a cutoff somewhere, right? That way you don't have someone go, I got rolled 15 points. I got 16, 19 straight. Shut up. Yeah. That way you don't have that.
So that's nice because it keeps everybody sort of in certain lanes, doesn't it? It means that you've always got a starting sort of capability, and that actually allows the GM to be able to align things appropriately because you haven't got somebody who's gone sort of stupid in one direction. I like that.
And then I flip everything on its butt. So you've got your stats, your base. Excuse me. Next, what you do is you go to the evolution tables. These are 2d6 tables. There's birth, childhood, and pre-adolescence. So in each of these tables, you can roll 2d6, and it's going to give you a partial sentence and a couple adjustments. This could be points to spend. It could be an adjustment to a stat. It could be mutations. Like, for example, I'll start on the birth table. Give me a random number from 2 to 12.
Ooh, 8.
8. You were abandoned in the nethers, ... And then it says you get a +1 to your fitness, plus 1d4 mutations, and from now on you roll on the wild table. So there's 2 tables, wild and civil. Civil meaning you were raised in some form of peoples. Wild means out in the world. All right, so now we'll stick with this one. So you were abandoned in the nethers. Let's go to your childhood wild table. Give me another 2 to 12.
Oh, we're going to go for an 11.
You have no memory of your childhood and have a strange, unique birthmark, ... which gives you a +1 strength, and now you have 1d4 negative mutation points. I'll explain that later. All right, and then we'll do your pre-adolescence wild child, 2 to 12.
Go on, Dean, you bring a number.
5. 5.
You killed to survive, but you liked it. +1 to your agility and +1d8 skill points. So those 3 partial sentences, here's where the insanity makes sense. If you love writing a backstory, those 3 sentences
guide you.
If you hate writing a backstory, those 3 sentences are your backstory.
Yeah. I like it. It's a nice way for beginners in role playing, so to sort of give them that sort of inroad, isn't it? Bear with me, my cat's decided that.
I just saw the shadow move by.
That was his tail. Yes.
So
do the tables change depending on? I noticed you said there was a wild and a civilized table. Are there any changes based on where your starting location is?
For the initial characters, no. Because it focuses on what's in North America. However, the new nationalities that were introduced, so it is a very great question. Like in Secrets of Sacred Mountain, I introduced Native American tribe that's been in seclusion this whole time. They have their own separate evolution tables.
Brilliant.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then the same with the Aboriginals that I just got done writing up for the new book that's coming out, Dystopian Down Under.
Yeah. I've been admiring a lot of the artwork on that one online. I think it's fantastic.
I drew 4 out of 5 of the kaiju. I had a lot of fun doing that.
Oh, fantastic.
We wish we could draw.
I know.
We can't. We do stick men. Our poor artists get sort of little bits with stick men on going sort of like this.
Well, one thing I have found that has been a lifesaver as an indie guy are the stock art. So there's so many artists out there that'll sell, as long as you give them the credit for it, you pay for the packet, you grab a few pieces here and there. And that's actually how I met some of the artists that I used. It's like, okay, that's a cool packet. Hey, would you do me a couple customs? What's your rates? And go from there. Yeah. Because art's key, but again, it also gets really expensive. And sadly, there's a lot of scammers out there, which that could be a whole other topic. It got so bad. I don't like people who proposition me. That's probably the bad word. Anyway,
that's the right word.
Choice of word, it's for hey, I'm an artist. I'm like, I don't accept them anymore because I can't. I've had at least 5 people, 3 that I caught flat out, try to burn me. And I'm like, look, I'm a one-man show. I'm an indie game. And I'm willing to help other indies, like even on my website, I promote other games, I promote artists, I promote everything.
Yeah.
Because I feel that we should all be one community.
Yeah, we're all part of a microcosm, aren't we? And the only way that we're all going to actually survive is if we support each other.
Absolutely. And, plus Wizards of the Coast suck. So that's what we all agree.
Completely agree on that matter. So.
All right. So anyway, you've got your evolution, then you move on to, remember I mentioned positive and negative mutation points.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now we're moving on to the mutation portion of our entertainment game. You spend these points. So there are negative and positive mutations. For your negative mutations, missing a digit, allergy, et cetera, all kinds of crazy stuff. Those negative points during character creation only can be used to buy positive mutations.
Ooh.
So like say you had 4 negative mutation points and you bought nearsighted, blah, blah, whatever, 4 points worth of stuff. You can then take those 4 points and for like this example, we had 4 points of positive mutations. So now you can either have 8 points in positive or the other option, you can dump those 4 points into your skill pool during character creation to use them to buy skills. So
okay, there's a lot of flexibility there. Yeah.
And it's on purpose. So you go back and forth, you buy what you want, and mutations run the gamut of, extra limbs, extra eyes to, just simple night vision or heightened vision, etc., etc. Some of them are a little more obnoxious than others, like wings. And if you have, I think it ends up costing about 8 or 12 points. But if you've got, and I've only had one player so far that actually had that many positive mutation points. She's got full-blown owl wings that fly, and she can carry up to her body weight.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty
No,
cool.
no, it's not. As a GM, that's awful. That's terrible.
Yeah, that's why it was so expensive.
Players.
I actually didn't think it was going to happen, but she's had a lot of fun with it. She's a good role player, and she's been having a lot of fun with it. She hasn't
Excellent. Yeah.
She hasn't tried to break anything. She just has a good time.
And I take it you probably have creatures that would prey on anybody flying above. And
absolutely.
Yeah. There's ways to control it.
You're just mean. That's all it is, Dean.
Well, I'm also going to give the player another nod here. She is one of the sweetest people I've ever met. So I don't think it's in her nature at all to do something mean to someone else. She's like one of those, hey, is Nikki showing up? Oh, there she is. Hi, the whole room. Hi, Nikki. She's one of those people that is just so damn nice. She's just a sweetheart.
Excellent.
Thank you.
And I don't say that about too many people.
Yeah, we've all got reputations of being grumpy GMs to maintain here. Come on, Tony.
We're going to cut that part where I was nice, right?
I'll
we'll totally cut that. Yeah.
All right, so now that we got your mutations, step 5, simply ask, what do you do? So this is where you pick your character type. So you've got your evolution table is giving you, this is what life threw at you, right? You were abandoned in the floating in a river basket, kidnapped by mutants, beat by a raider, traded to a wizard, whatever the case may be. Not all of it is pleasant. And now you're getting ready to start your adventuring career. You're 17, 18 years old, whatever the case may be. What path are you choosing? And this is where you pick your character type. So you've got all your stats are done and all of the wackiness that's going to happen, because it should be random, radiation and all that fun stuff. This is where you now customize. So you pick your character type, and each type has, here's bonuses for this, that, and the other. Here's minimum requirements and so forth and so on. Like Barbarian, for example, they choose one weapon, they get a +1 to a skill level with that weapon. And They have a penalty against, superstitions like magic and stuff like that. Simple. Boom. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. Here's your roll for your life points, because I didn't want to say hit points because, I'm different. Life points. Anyway. And here's your starting gear, which I actually have in here based on where you're from. Examples of starting gear. So it's not per character type. It's from where you're from.
Yeah. So
like Suberica, you're going to start with like furs and a bedroll and shit, right? You're from Alamex, you're going to start with jeans and a cowboy hat, of course. And you're going to get your choice between a small caliber revolver or a horse, because horses are expensive.
Ooh.
Already, I can see where you start will influence who you are. So you will not have many druids, I'm guessing, in some regions where they have jeans and stuff like that, because a druid wouldn't wear jeans or use a revolver.
The funny part is in Alamex, they do have the druids, because Alamex is the second least irradiated part. Alamex and Suberica, and that was actually part of Vikings and Robots. A war almost started because they were creating a trade route circumventing New Rome.
Right.
Because where Alamex, their tech pretty much stops at steam. So you've got Old West style guns, like 1800s era guns, and the locomotive and the telegraph. Whoop, that's where it stops.
Yeah.
So they stop around like low mid. So Alamex and Suberica are the only ones that boast having livestock with only one head.
Yeah.
Nice.
So part of the crux is they've decided to, let's start sharing animals, plants, do a trade route. Rehabilitation
of the surrounding areas. But I think that's great.
Well, New Rome gets pissed because they're right in the middle, and it's actually a boat. They were creating.
And they want to control
around, and New Rome was like, "How you're cutting us out?" And they both went, "Well, you're kind of a dick." And that's how the war pretty much started. And in the middle
Yeah.
of all this, I introduced a war bot that was in stasis and all kinds of other wacky things, including a group who's kind of like the Justice League of mutants, because it's funny. And in the midst of all of this is all in Vikings and Robots. So war is brewing, and that's when you also find out that they've got a pre-atomic submarine, they being New Rome, and a dirigible, an airship.
Oh.
So with each of the source adventure books, like Cowboys and Mutants, I focus more on the Old West and New Magic, because Cowboys and Mutants, you actually find out there's a cabal of druids that are assholes, and they're hell-bent on moving Alamex into war to wipe out New Rome to get rid of the taint of tech. So their idea of trading is to get rid of them, so that way there's a direct route between them and Samerica. And then the next book is the second plan of hey, why don't we just use a boat? We've already got boats. Yeah, let's make a bigger boat. I guess that would have made more sense than trying to wipe out, we don't like those guys. So anyway, I always put lots of intrigue and fun in it. So that's that. So character type you picked, and then what can you do? You roll 3d6 plus 10, and that's your skill point pool. Now, as you went through the evolution tables, you may have gotten bonuses to skill points, blah, 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 blah. Things happen. You take those points and you buy your skills during character creation, okay? All skills have what's called an LC, level cost. So if it's an LC1, 1 point per, right? Simple. LC2, 2 points per, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The more complicated the skill, the more points it costs.
Okay.
Right.
So you can't start with about 5.
I got a question on that.
Sure.
So if, as you say, the more complicated the skill, but what are you classing as complicated? Is that tech side is complicated, or say something like skills that rely on, say, mental abilities are more complicated? How have you balanced that?
I make shit up. But no, it's both. Yeah. No, it's actually a valid question, and all joking aside, it's both, because that's what I put my head into. Like for the build and repair, simple machine is like 1 point, but when you move into a complex machine, it's 2 points. When you're moving into combustion, it's 3. You're moving into like rockets and stuff, it's 4 and 5 points per skill level. So it's expensive. So there is an actual sort of divide within your skills itself to give you that demarcation for your points. And the same with like alchemy. I have a basic alchemy, and then the next from there is there's also a synthetic alchemy, which is more obviously for the wizards, creating gasoline, stuff like that. And there's a mystical alchemy. And each of these has also a progression of how expensive they are to learn. Do skills require the simpler skill to expand the more complicated? So you just covered repair, and repair came in what was simple, complex, combustion. So you can't just ignore simple. Correct. Yeah. So simple's kind of your gate for all the other skills. For that. So some of them don't have a scale, but for build and repair, in order to learn advanced, you have to have at least 3 base levels of one of the basic. Got it. Okay. So base level is you've spent your points. Like, so if it was, we'll stick with 1. So level cost of 1. We spent 3 points to have a base of 3 in simple machine, right? Yeah. So if I wanted to move to advanced machine, so now we're getting into steam and clockwork. Yeah. That costs 2 per, but I had to have that base of 3 in the initial. Yeah. And while we're at it, I'll explain how the skill levels work. So we've building on this, we bought 3 levels in simple machine, right? Build, repair, simple machine. Simple machine is based on tech, your stat. Yeah. So if you have your tech, we'll say you have a tech of 10, you would take that base of 3, add it to your tech stat. That's your skill level. Okay. So there are no throwaway stats in this game unless you purposely choose it. Every skill in this game is tied back to an attribute. All of your skills, you have agility skills, intellect skills, mana skills, tech skills, et cetera, like all of your melee skills are tied back to strength.
Yeah.
Where more complicated stuff like your bows and your martial arts, that goes to agility, because you got to have a little more than okay. All of your nature-related animal, etc., all of that ties back to mana. All of your lore, comprehension, reading, study, doctor, etc., all of that goes under intellect. Survival, climbing, knowing what plant you can eat and what plant's going to eat you, all of that falls under fitness, which also your life points are based on your fitness. And your move is also based on your fitness.
Nice.
And all of your so here's where the wizards also change. So to be a druid, you have to have a high mana.
Yeah.
I think it's minimum 8 and a minimum intellect of 7. So those are that's the bread and butter for the druid. So once you started assigning your stats, if you had in your mind, I wanted to be a druid, that's where you do that. For a wizard, it's 8 tech and 7 intellect. So the druid's magic is all fueled by their mana.
Yeah.
Wizard's magic is fueled by tech. And
It's
how
the
they differentiate.
Technomancer that you were talking about, isn't it? It's that link. I like that.
And they've also, I guess now I can segue into magic now that we've bought our skills and covered the gist.
Before we do, can
sure.
I just ask a quick question? How many skills have you got?
I have no idea. A lot.
A lot. And of course, characters won't have all of them.
Oh, hell no.
No.
But in that vein, nearly anything in this game can be attempted. You have a default. Yeah. So there are certain skills that say you can't default, like alchemy, right? You're going to blow yourself up. Or whatever. Certain skills are, and it'll state under the skill, you have to have training.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then you have 0 is your base plus your attribute. So in this game, you can at least attempt almost anything. So like say you find a sword, just because you don't have the sword skill doesn't mean you can't swing it. It would be 0 because you have no training, plus the default of your strength. Voila, there's your skill level until you spend XP. And I guess I could cover that next.
If you're enjoying this content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please leave a comment and don't forget the little notification bell.
So skills, how do skills work?
So skills, how they work is you have the base that you buy with your points, right? And that base is then added to the associated attribute because all skills tie back to an attribute. Yeah. And that's your total skill level. Certain character types have bonuses. For example, the barbarian, you have a chosen weapon during character creation, and you have a +1 with that weapon. That +1 is to hit, to parry, to throw, etc., with that weapon. So all that combined, bam. During character creation, no skill level with bonuses can be above 15. That just maintains a balance of low level. The max ever, like I said, attributes can go up to 20. And base skills can go to 10. So in other words, your combined total can go up to 30. On a D20 system, that's not bad. But there's the cap. There's no real need to go past that. So you asked me how many skills, and it's kind of funny. So this book, the Compendium Volume 1, which is available now on my website.
Volume 1.
Is because I figured, I hope people are still playing it in a year or two after I finish phase 2, and there'll be a compendium. So what this is I combined all the stuff in the 8 source adventure books and now it's 3, but at the time 2 adventure modules that I'd written over the last 3.5 years. Each one expands the lore. Each one adds new skills, new gear, new some of them nationalities and so forth and so on. So what I did is I put all that under one roof. And also some new stuff. So interesting rule tidbits and changes that popped up that I just didn't think about when I wrote the original game. I've included in here. And the reason I did that was I'm not just a designer, I'm also a gamer. And I think it's a dick move when a company goes, oh, here's version 1.5. It's the exact same book with 40 more pages that now is going to cost you $65, which is just, dude, I already have that book. So I I did a quick poll, and luckily everyone else agreed with me. That made me happy. So instead, for $20, 20, 25, whatever, I got to pay my artists. It's 86 pages of all new stuff. So this way, you don't have to dig through the 6 source adventure books or even the player's guide. And in the back, I finally did a handy dandy sexy list of, hey, here's where you can find the skills, etc., what page they're on, whether it's in this book or the player's guide. Segueing into that, there's 3 compendium books that are coming out because of that. One is the creature catalog that I showed you. So that's all the creatures from the GM's guide plus all of the other adventures, and about 30 new ones that I was like, hey, those are cool, and throw them in my game with new art, and did the same thing. So instead of expanding, and here's a GM's guide version 1.5, here's a $20, $25 book that you don't absolutely have to have these. They expand the game for you. You can still play with what you already have, but if you want more, I like your money. All right, here you go. And I did the same.
I like that approach.
Yeah.
And then Who in the Dawn takes all of the NPCs. So that way the GM and puts them by territory. So instead of digging through all of these different adventure books, a GM can go, shit, I'm going to do something in, I don't know, Paradisium. Ta-da! There's 12 NPCs I can dig from. So I'm very GM friendly. Okay, sorry. That's
perfectly fine.
I like that because it sort of brings everything together, and it's a nice way of people being able to reference stuff. So I think that's a lovely approach. And as you say, it's you're combining it. You're also giving any addendums to stuff that you've had to adjust, so it's all in one place. And you're also giving a load of new stuff, which is just phenomenal.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we've discussed skills. We know what skill values we're dealing with. Potentially, I guess your skills could be anywhere from sort of, making a skill roll as low as 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Yep. All the way up to a maximum of 30.
That's the skill level. So skill level would be, 1 to 30.
Yeah.
Everything on. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So when you make a skill check, what are you rolling against? So it's you add your D20, because you mentioned D20 system. Yeah. That number, how do you know if you succeeded or not?
You roll that number or under.
So your skill is the number you need to roll, your DC effectively, to use the skill.
Yes, that is your target.
Or below. Brilliant.
But I also took it a step further, because most games it's like you either made it or you didn't, or you got a crit, or that's it, right?
Yeah.
So I have crits in here, which is a factor of 10. So if you roll over your target by 10, that's crit failure.
Okay.
Right? If you roll under by 10, that's a crit success.
Right.
Excuse me. A natural 1 is always a critical success. A natural 20 is always a critical failure. Why? Because.
Yeah. Having come from AD&D, where your D20s can flip depending on what you're doing. Yeah.
The reason I went with the under system is when I first started gaming, back in the dark ages when I rode my Brontosaurus to school. D&D, of course, was the first, and then there was, Tunnels and Trolls and Palladium. The ones that really caught my attention were, instead of looking at a chart, like, I'm going to dime it out. I can't stand Rollmaster. I think it's a horrible system. It should be called Chartmaster. Anyway, if someone likes it, that's great. I hope you enjoy it. Personal, hate it. Stuff like RuneQuest, Stormbringer, these were all breaking the molds in the 80s, and they were percentile based.
Yeah,
where you had to roll under, and I just something intrigued me about that, or appealed to me. Same with GURPS. GURPS is an under with 3d6, and I like that. I like the elegance of that, as opposed to, let me look at a table. And by the way, I've never had a problem with THACO. I can count to 10. Sorry, old school. I realized that in 3rd edition and beyond, they did screw up THACO for whatever reason. But in 1st edition, I can assure anyone who's never played it, it's easy. You look at a chart, that's my THACO. Roll that or better on D20.
And I will remind you, THACO was not a term in 1st edition.
It was to hit armor class 0.
It had the long wording. Otherwise, it was attack matrices. So you were always looking up a table. And then second edition brought in Thaco as a term after Isle of the Ape.
I'm going to draw the pair of you back into what we're supposed to be talking about, which is Dystopian Dawn. Otherwise, we're going to basically just talk about Thaco and AD&D for the next 3 hours, because I know what we're all like.
Okay, I'm excited about this skill system. So you've got your D20. You know what your skill factor is. You've got to roll that number or lower. So all of that works. How do you adjust for the difficulty? Say the conditions are really dire and you're trying to do something.
There's 2 ways to do it. Either the GM's guide, you look at the chart that says, you know, if they're running and moving, et cetera, here's the penalty.
Yeah.
Or bullshit. If the GM says it's going to take you -2.
You got a penalty. It's a minus. It's pouring with rain. You're trying to do something. It's slippery as anything. You got a -5.
So all those examples are in there. So one thing I do throughout the player's guide and GM's guide, I try not to do too crunchy. So the game itself, I saw one of the questions on your questionnaire. I would say it's mid to light.
Okay.
So what I do is I am very much story. I'm all about flow and everyone having fun, period. Sure, the mechanics are there because without a game mechanics, we don't have a game. We're just sitting around shooting shit, right? Yeah. So you got to have the mechanics. But I try to make them as simple as possible. So everything's D20 based. Life's easy. I include crunchy rules for some of the stuff like survival and carrying stuff and eating and combat, blah, blah, blah. But I make notes underneath it. Like, here's how you use it. However, if you don't want to, throw it out. Right? You can completely ignore this. It doesn't impact the game. But I even put a little gist of that. I think it's in the GM's guide. Some tables like to have that higher level crunch. So for those who like it, here's the mechanic. Yeah. But for everyone who doesn't, blow it off and keep going. Right. As long as everyone's having fun, go. And that was also one of the hard give and take of balancing the game. I wanted everything to be flexible and customizable. You hit on something earlier that I wanted to come back to. It is all interwoven. Yeah. That was by design. I purposely wanted everything to come back to a simple base. And even when we get into magic and whatnot, it's magic has a pattern like this with the players. Can I? Yes. Can I? Yes. Can I? Yes. Well, I do this. That's how it progresses every time someone plays a spellcaster, because the magic in the system is completely up to the player's imagination and the GM's approval. Okay. How's that for
sounds interesting? Yeah, yeah.
Oh, as someone who plays a lot of spellcasters, that intrigues me.
Yeah. All right. So,
so Dean, any other questions about the mechanics that you want to get into before I hog the sort of?
I don't think so. I think that pretty much every interaction will follow that mechanic.
There is one other thing I wanted to add. There is a rule of a factor of 3. Right. So every die roll in this game actually counts. I mentioned earlier, but we digressed into D&D and shit, which is fantastic. That means we have found our people, and I love that. For every factor of 3 that you make your die roll by, you get a bonus. So like say your skill is 15 and you roll a 6. 15 minus 6 is 9. For those who aren't sure what Thaco is, sorry. So you had to get that stinger. So 9 is a factor of 3. So that's a +3 bonus. So if you're hitting someone in melee, +3 damage. Picking a lock, +3 to your skill level, right? Maybe it reduces the time of your spell. It's completely up to the GM and it's situation based.
Okay. That is an interesting mechanic. Does that put a lot of onus on the GM to keep having to come up with imaginative things for that bonus to be applied to?
Yeah, usually it's pretty easy because usually it comes out straightforward. Like, hey, I'm using a skill. I made, I didn't quite get a crit, but I made it by 9. All right, +3. I mean, it's usually pretty simple. There are occasionally like usually magic casting where like say if it's not one that does damage, then you're like, well, let's see. Normally it takes 4 turns. We'll say it's done in 2. Yeah, and it's just again, GM gets to have that flavor. Yeah, that flexibility, and the players as well. So it kind of it gives you that flow, that free flow through it. So the rules are there, but you have oodles oodles. I just used my daughter's word, oodles.
Oodles.
Oodles of
It's a
flexibility.
very British word, oodles.
Oodles is a
like
very
that.
British word. Yes.
Yes, it is. Oodles.
Well,
I approve.
I give you a little heads up. Even though my last name is Hispanic, I found out not too long ago, about 5-6 years ago, I'm not Hispanic. Neither was my father. So I don't know what my last name is. My grandmother, my dad's mom's family, are the Meachams, and they're predominantly in Birmingham. They originally came from a village of Measham, and then changed the name to Meacham. I don't know why. C to S, whatever the fuck. Anyway, and that's my mom's side. Because that's a whole nother segue. But I found that out through DNA, and my dad thought it was hilarious when he was still alive. I was like, "You want me to get you a kid?" He's like, "Yeah." So I called him up. I was like, "Guess what, Garcia? You're about as white can be." Apparently, Grandma zigged when she should have zagged, because Jose is not your daddy. So that was sadly 70 years later. No one knows what. But segue in, I found out that I'm not Spanish. I'm English and Irish and Scottish. So not at all.
Welcome to the club.
Oh, yes. And Jewish. I'm also Jewish.
We will welcome you with open arms in your Celtic history. How does that sound?
Yes.
As I said, I like to speak Dwarvish. It's not Scottish, it's Dwarvish.
Yes.
Why does every person who plays a dwarf go to the Scottish accent?
The very first D&D movie.
Well, no, it goes back to the cartoon, because I saw that before I played.
The dwarves spoke Scottish in the cartoon, did they?
It was very guttural. That kind of. So it's about as close to a drunken Scot as you're going to get.
All I know is the first D&D movie, it was Scottish. It was a Scottish accent, and at that point, it kind of stuck, and all dwarves spoke in that tone.
Well, timeline-wise, the first time I played D&D was 1980. And dwarves were already Scottish then.
Wow. That is.
And most of your elves were, effete British snobs. It's just the way it was.
Well, of course, as it should be. Yes. I can just see all the elves, lined up, their beautiful uniforms, their muskets at their sides. Yeah, beautiful.
Absolutely. God save the Queen.
Right, before we move on to magic, I can't wait to get into how magic works. We touched a little bit on combat with, you mentioned a few things, parrying and bonuses to damage. So in a melee, I'm attacking someone. I've got a melee weapon, so I roll my skill. I'm not against their skill or anything like that. I just got to roll my skill.
But it's a contest of feats. So if you're swinging at someone and they're dodging, parrying, blocking, they roll their skill, and whichever one of you is better wins.
Okay.
Nice
and
simple.
Then, and again, the GM does the math in the background. Like, say the attacker made it by 8, and the defender only made it by 2. Still a difference of 6. The GM tells the attacker +2 damage. Go.
So it is of the difference between the two. So it's no longer, it's a kind of a combination of, you've got to get under your skill, but you've also got to get way more under than the other person got under their skill.
And I did also write that's optional. So if that becomes too much math for a GM and you just want to go skill to skill, you can do that.
Yeah.
I prefer the contest because I think it adds more gravitas. I think it adds more of, okay, it is me versus them. It's not.
I think you just muted yourself.
I put my hand down on the space bar and muted. So it's not their turn, my turn, their turn, my turn. It's a combination. So everything is going in tandem.
That has my approval.
That's nice.
It really does.
Yeah.
I do not like the ping pong combats of old systems. So fantastic. That sounds great. And you can always defend when you're being attacked.
Yes.
Yep. And I take it something like parrying. You can only parry a melee weapon, or if you've got a shield, a missile weapon.
So you can only parry a melee weapon.
Yeah.
And also every item has a DF, durability factor, which normally I don't care. However, when you're parrying, now it comes into play. So if someone's swinging a two-handed great axe and you've got a rapier that only has, 8 points of durability, that great axe, sure, you parried it, your rapier's gone. It's destroyed. Have a nice day. There's no way it can survive. But that's another one of the rules where it's like, hey, if you want to blow it off, you can. If you want to go with more fantastic. But the point structure is there. And so going into shields have one purpose in life, you can you can shield bash as an attack, but you have to take the shield skill.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what a shield does is you're blocking. So what that block does is the shield's durability factor absorbs the damage.
Yeah.
So let's say the sword did 10 points and the shield has 30 DF. Now the shield has 20 DF, and so forth and so on until the shield is destroyed.
Okay. Can you repair the shield?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you can find an engineer who knows how to repair this.
Yeah, I was about to say, so long as someone's got the appropriate skill and the time to probably do the repairs.
And there are plenty of scavenging skills in here because it is a wasteland. There's even a survival skill that I call Wastelander, which costs more than your basic survival, but it's knowing, hey, that water's irradiated, that plant's going to try to kill me, and so forth and so on.
Fantastic.
Nice. I like that.
I like that too. Just to quickly, because I'm all about getting into the detail here, and I love mechanics. With the parrying, you got your shield. Do you still have to make your skill roll?
Yes.
Or does the shield? So
no, you still have a block.
You still got to block it. So I've exceeded my attackers how much they beat their skill by. That means they still deal damage, but it's only to the shield, and they don't get a bonus damage from their skill.
Well, actually, if the attack completely, dominates your block, they got past the block.
Yeah. But my block got better. So I succeeded by 5. They only succeeded by 4. So my shield has gotten away.
Your shield takes the damage.
And it would only be the base damage of the weapon.
Yes.
And is that damage rolled, or is it always fixed?
It is rolled. So in answer to one of your other questions, all the dice are used in this game because I'm old.
We like the dice.
Brilliant.
Every die is used, including the D3.
The D3. Now that's the name I have not heard of for a long time. The D3. I love the D3.
I actually have one. It's not here. Dang it! It's supposed to be in my other bag.
Is it just a renumbered D6, or is it proper? Yeah.
It's just a renumbered D6. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Oh,
but
fantastic.
it's still a D3.
Oh,
but I actually have one of the. Someone got me a crazy set where they're almost like runestone shaped dice,
and you kind of roll them.
Yeah, they don't roll worth the shit. Let's be real. I mean, they look really neat, but you're like,
yes.
I even have a D2. That's not in my game. Flip a coin. Yeah, that's just
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
We're getting really into the depths here because this has got me excited. Now I'm moving on. So your weapons have damage. It'll be a dice. So typically, how much would a club do?
Club generally is like 1d6, and then depending on your strength, you get a melee modifier.
Okay, so
if you got high strength, you get bonuses to damage.
Very similar to the kind of AD&D. Yeah.
Same with so missile weapons fall under agility. A high agility gives you a missile weapon damage bonus.
Okay, so you could have a D6 plus 1 plus 2, and then an additional bonus if your skill exceeds by every 3 points.
Yep, and if you get a crit, then I'm pointing at my GM screen, which this was made for me. It would not, I
like that.
That is lovely.
Isn't that sexy?
Oh, that is. Yeah.
So
it's nice. It's magnetic, so you can actually put. I like that. That is awesome.
And it took a while back and forth because he actually carved my map on the front, and then I went over it with a black wood paint. Anywho, so there's the tables for your critical success, for your critical failures, your reaction tables. All of that stuff is in the GM's guide. Yeah. Also, I do have a GM screen. As well as all your combat modifiers like attacking from behind, attacking from below, 3/4 cover, blah, blah, all of that stuff. So again, as a player, all you need to know is the player's guide, your character type, and I roll D20. Ta-da, that's it. Except for one other roll. Combat initiative is 1d6 plus your agility.
Mm-hmm.
And that is your number. So you have the option, if you want to roll every turn, which I find tedious, you can. What I prefer to do is roll once, and that is your order in combat throughout this combat.
Yeah.
So it's elegant and simple. And one less mechanic for the GM to go, wait, where the hell are we?
Yeah.
So 1d6 plus your agility. So again, the higher your hand-eye coordination, the faster you move in combat.
Okay.
It's almost like it was by design.
Fantastic. I'm getting a really good visualization of how combat works now, which is great. We got initiative, we got the damage, the base damage of a weapon, all the bonus damages you can get. You were about to tell us, reveal critical hits.
Oh, yeah. Magnets, how do they work? It's magic. All right, so this is, let's see if I get up there.
Oh, yes, critical success table.
So, and these are all in the GM's guide. So I do it by, there's 3 types of weapon damage: blunt, piercing, and edged.
Yeah.
Okay? So blunt is blunt. Ta-da. Piercing, arrows, rapiers, spears. Any piercing damage that gets through armor inflicts another 50%, round down.
Okay.
Edged weapons, swords, blah, 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 hacking, slashing, and it gets through armor is another 25% round down damage because it's gone through. And again, that's another rule that if the GM goes, I don't want to do math, you don't have to, but that is in the core mechanics. So those are the 3 attack types. And then, for example, so you got a critical hit, which is either a natural 1 is always a crit, or 10 under your target. Now, again, this is where the GM has to do math. Like, say, I'm going to, I don't know, I'm throwing my club across the room at a guy who's running. All right, there's probably a -3 between distance and, you know, how fast the guy's running. So now we've got a -3 to hit. Say I still made my crit with that -3. So I'm going to look at the table. Let's say we did a 9. 9's a good one because that gives us 3 factors of 3, right?
Yeah.
Actually, that wouldn't be a crit.
10, but you still got your
base
your
crit.
3 factors. Yeah.
So then you're going to roll 3d6 and you go to the table. So for this example, let's say 8 to 10. Great shot plus 1d6 base damage. Simple, right? So now I'm going to go in. I'm going to roll my normal damage.
Yeah.
Plus whatever modifiers for strength, right? Actually, this would be a missile weapon. So modifiers for agility for 8. Bleh. Then I'm going to add this extra 1d6.
Yeah.
And then since I made it by 10, I have a +3 because of the factor of 3. So I'm going to do, like, say 1d6 plus 2 plus 1d6 plus 3. But again, that's on the GM. The player just goes, what? And the GM's like, roll 2d6 plus 5. Shush.
Yeah. Okay.
There's also critical failure tables.
Oh, right.
Ooh,
So,
let's have a look at those.
All right. Next page. There we go. Critical failures of the bottom defense for block, dodge, and parry. You get even. You. There we go.
Oh, yes, that blind spot.
So twist and
Permanent
fall.
inflict.
You overextended your reach, missed and fell on your face. One of my favorite is wardrobe malfunction. Lose next defensive action fixing yourself.
I love that one.
Blind spot. Opponent inflicts +3 damage. So forth and so on. Now, going back to like the compendium, one of the things that popped up that I realized I hadn't done, because when we did Cowboys and Mutants, now I'm focusing obviously on, 17 and 1800 era guns, everything from muskets to your
handguns,
Colts,
revolvers and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, I was actually thinking of, again, Colt
45.
There we go.
Yeah.
I was about to say Python, but that wasn't it. Anyway, so now you're a Peacemaker. That was the word I'm trying to go with. Not to be confused with that dumb show. That's a whole other segue I probably shouldn't open. All right. So since I was focusing a lot on that, I realized I hadn't come up with a critical failure for guns, for bows, or for explosives. I was like, that really doesn't fall neatly under blunt, piercing, or edged. Shit. Yeah. So in the compendium, so I included that in the Cowboys and Mutants, since that's when I was writing it. And then when I did the compendium volume 1, it's now in there as well. And also for combat, like in Vikings and Robots, you have the potential of actually leading troops. You could be on the side of the elves, the Romans, etc., etc. Hopefully you've managed to be diplomatic enough to bring the two together against the giant evil robot that's going to blow up the earth. That's what is supposed to happen. Luckily, during playtesting, it did. So I had player characters jumping out with jetpacks out of a dirigible, having a great time. And I had other player characters like the Druid riding a wolf as the elves and the dwarves came pouring in on this robot's homestead. It was quite the epic battle. But no one wants to roll 10,000 dice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I created a mass.
I like rolling dice.
But you want to roll for every single entity under your control if you've got 100 people. Yeah.
No.
Okay. So I created a mass combat system, and I tested it during Vikings and Robots. So that's right. I do play testing online with every one of my books. Before it goes out, it's tested. And I invite people to come online. I do it at conventions, et cetera, because I want that feedback. Because what I might think might be a great idea, but when I sit down and realize, well, that sucked. Let me back up, and tell my ego to shut the hell up and let me rewrite this so people are having fun. But we found out I was actually first contact. It worked, and everyone actually had a good time with it, because instead of, I think one player ended up having like 20 elves and 10 dwarves, and with missile weapons and hammers, and they're assaulting, and you roll once. So what it is, it just kind of gives you a number, like a value, kind of like Warhammer. You've got a value for that army. Boom, that's what you're rolling on. And then there's tables based on how well you roll, the adversaries, so forth and so on, and results 25%, battle damage, 15%, whatever the case may be, until attrition takes its toll. And I wasn't sure if it was going to work, but it went off without a hitch first time. And I was just, when that happens and it's something complex like that, you sit back and go, I mean, I meant to plan that. It's exactly.
It reminds me very much of the mechanics of Tunnel and Trolls, where your side all had their dice from various factors that were all rolled, and then spell damage was applied first, and this and that, and the other, but it was all treated as one set of attacks.
But it was 400 D6s.
Yeah, exactly.
This is just one D20.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I love Tunnels and Trolls. And
you needed a lot of D6s. I'm going to bring back something you said. You mentioned about lots of tables and Rollmaster. Mm-hmm. And I'm hearing lots of tables from your side. How does that factor in? I know the tables, and I'm not having a go here by no means. I think those tables are fantastic. But you mentioned about trying to move away from tables and not having tables dominate the game, and you've got a number of tables that are referred to for things like your critical hits, fumbles, and
at some point you need something, and I like keeping that random factor. So I don't feel that every attack should have or every combat should have the same result. Now, when I first did make the mechanics, I actually struggled with that, about whether or not I'm going to have tables of some kind. And I realized, okay, so my end was the bare minimum.
Yeah.
So you have a critical hit for the weapon category. Mm-hmm. So there's only 3.
Yeah. You
have a critical miss for the weapon category, 3.
Plus explosives and guns.
And well, now explosives and guns. But now there's 6.
Yeah.
I sit corrected. Yes. Now there's 6. But you can also blow that off if you want. And then the for whether or not you've got penalties, et cetera, that's just in a handy chart that you look at to go, okay, he's behind a wall, it's -3. So still a table, but you got to have something, You've
got to have reference material, don't you? Because it just helps position it when you're running the game. I quite like that.
And so I have that in a combat modifier table. And then you have your reactions. So reactions like fear, commerce, persuasion, intimidation, interrogation. Those are tables. And that's pretty much it until you get to random encounters.
Yeah. And I always consider random encounters completely separate. They are tables that you use as and when required, rather than being kind of baked into the system. I like the idea of the tables. I think they add a bit of spice to the combat. I'm almost finished on my deep dive into combat now. I got a couple more questions. Number 1, how does armor work?
Good question. I was waiting on the questions on armor and death.
Yeah, and that was my second one was going to be, how does death work? So armor first.
Armor is incredibly complicated. Yeah. Right? So you have an armor rating, and you subtract that from the damage you take.
Okay, so it's similar to how the shield works and stuff like that. It's a shielding set of hit points. Does it always apply?
Yes. Well, unless like it's a mental attack. I mean, obviously, there's going to be circumstances you're going to bypass it, but generally, yes. So if you have the other thing I do with armor, you have 2 ways you can do this. You can do it by piece, because finding a full suit of armor in the wasteland is rare and expensive. Usually I've got a pauldron, I don't know, a lizard skin with a piece of tire attached to it, etc., etc. It's whatever you could piecemeal, unless you happen to make friends with dwarves who can make chainmail. Anyway, so you've got piecemeal. So each area is going to have armor. Am I in the right place? Nope. All right. I think I'm in
over there.
It's on the character sheet. But you can do two things. Either A, you only worry about where the location is, or what I do is an averaging. So if I've got 2, 4, 3, blah, 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 average it all out, my armor rating overall is 3. Simple. So that's the only number I look at. If I take 8 points of damage, I subtract 3 AR, I take 5.
Okay.
That's it. The only time for me when I play, like I said, I give those optional rules for the crunchies. What I do is the only time that pauldron would come into play is if it was a specific called shot to the arm, right? Otherwise, what's your base? What your overall AR? I keep it as easy as possible.
So you just mentioned cold shots. I'm interrupting.
Yeah, no, I was about to jump on that. Go on.
Yeah. You mentioned a cold shot. Do you take any penalties if you're actually making a cold shot?
Absolutely. Let's see. Let's go to the other combat modifier table. What's behind door number 2? All right. So victim is completely unaware, +3 skill level for attacker. Victim's asleep or otherwise incapacitated, automatic success. Using large objects as cover. So again, vague. Could be a car, could be a boulder, could be your fat friend, whatever.
Yeah.
Someone hid behind me. +3 skill level for defender, -2 skill level for attacker, right? For defense and offense. Attacking from above, +2 skill level, blah, blah, blah. Moving, +1 skill level for defender and -2 skill level for attacker. And then there's other rules for movement depending on the difference. If you really want to go down that route, I do have the math in the game. Or you can just go, it's -2. Done. Attacking from the ground on your back is a -1 for the attacker, +1 for the defender. So yes, it's all there just for you, Vicky.
So what would be the penalty on a cold shot?
The cold shot depends on the location, which I lied. That's the other table. Look, this one's got a color. Oh. All right, so I do that by the type of attack: blunt, edged, and pierced. Right?
Yeah.
So say a piercing attack, you're going to shoot someone in the eye with an arrow. The eyeball is a -5 to your skill level. Okay. Plus, you can also have factors of distance, movement. So this could add up to, a -10 penalty. But that's the GM doing that math. If you succeed, it's +4 damage. So +4 LP. Victim is blinded in one eye for 1 day per life point of damage they take. And they must make an agility at -2 per point of damage they took, or they lose the eye. So called shots are brutal. And I remind my players, call shots exist, but
on both sides,
monsters can use them as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you can always get that one player that wants to run around doing nut shots.
Yeah.
Right? Am I wrong? Yeah. Is that every table, right?
Yeah.
No.
Keep it up.
I've got a questionnaire for new players, and at the top of that is, do you want to run around doing nut shots? And if they tick that box, that's it.
I actually had one that ended up being their shtick. It was a thief. I think we were doing GURPS Fantasy, and kept throwing knives. Nut shot, nut shot. Well, the word spread, right? Because the way I run my games is repercussions. Actions have consequences. Yep. So eventually, all the bandits, the orcs, the kobolds, everyone heard about this son of a bitch who was always going for nut shots with the knives, and they put a bounty on him.
Yeah.
And they caught him, and they
probably started wearing protection as well.
Cuffs, and they all started taking nut shots as soon as they saw him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just
going well, that's not fair. I was like, no, actually, that is 100% fair.
There we go. My camera started drifting then. This is fantastic. Yeah, we got tracking cameras, and sometimes they'll come off fixed and go into tracking mode, and then they start drifting around, and it makes it's
and then they pick up the cats, and then it's really funny.
Yeah. I'm on the last bit now for combat, and I'm loving what I'm hearing so far.
Thank you.
Life points.
Yes.
How many do you kind of have at the start?
So,
how do they go up? How many levels do you have in a class? So is it plus per level? And what happens when you lose them?
stuff, yes, no, death.
Okay.
All right, so your base life points is based on your character type.
Yeah.
Like a barbarian rolls D12.
Right? Okay.
Where I believe the Techomancer is, D4. Have a nice day, wizard. Take it in the chin. All right. Where everyone else is D6 is D8s. So you roll that plus your fitness, so your stat. Mm-hmm. That's your base LP. However, each of your attributes can tie into that. For example, intellect gives you a bonus. Fitness gives you a bonus. Those are the two that give you bonuses to your life points. And the reason being, obviously, the more fit you are, the more durable you are. The smarter you are, get out of the way. Don't get hit. So life points is a culmination of all of that. Excuse me. When you hit 0 LP, you have to make a fitness roll each turn to remain conscious. If you fall unconscious, you're unconscious. Have a nice day. If you go 3 times your life points in the negative, you have to, we're going to assume you're unconscious at this point. You have to start making fitness rolls each turn not to die because you've been brutaled. If you take 5 times your LP in the negative, you're dead. Have a nice day. There's no roll. There's nothing left of you.
Yeah. Hand over your character sheet. Do not pass to go. So you've got no sort of, you've got no way of coming back from the dead.
Well, that could be an entire quest. Because there is magic if you find someone who has body magic and they're powerful enough, because that's a lot of magic power, then it can happen. But again, that would be going back to harken the original days of D&D, where if you wanted to get a character raised, that was a quest in and of itself. Yeah. It wasn't just, I've got a rod of resurrection in my pack of holding and tuk tuk tuk. It was an undertaking, and that built character for your characters. And a lot of times the person that was getting their character resurrected would have a secondary character. They would roll up another one that was going along, or they had an NPC that the DM gave them. And it was a big, I remember it being, big things. So same thing in here. So either you're dead, or again, if the players all go, wow, I really love that character, and the rest of the group also liked you, then perhaps we form a new quest to, you're traveling to Mount Thum to find the Hermit of Humpty Frats who has the, the MacGuffin. And so anything is possible.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. It's very grounded, gritty. I like systems where death is very meaningful. And it sounds like you got to take a lot of punishment before you actually reach that point. Yes. You'll probably be unconscious, so you're relying on the party to save you. So the hit points, do you have levels for your classes?
You have not so much levels, no. And I'm glad you asked that. There are no levels in this game other than skill level. Yeah. How XP works, so normally like D&D, I've got 250,000 XP, I roll 1d4 hit points, and I get 1 skill slot, right?
Yeah.
I hate that with a passion. I find that incredibly crippling, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And it also forces almost every ranger is the same, right? Almost every paladin is identical. You might have a few nuances, but character itself, and this goes for multiple other games. I'm beating on D&D because we were already talking about D&D, but almost every system that has those classes, it's the same. So what I've done with this instead, so you buy remember character creation, you have points and dice rolling, best of both worlds on purpose. You build your character. As you progress and you earn experience points, which I have a table for giving XP. XP isn't just I killed a monster, did a thing. It's the more clever you are, the more ROLE versus ROLL that you play, the more XP you earn. You come up with an idea that saves the party, right? That's worth more points than I hacked and slashed it and I'm a murder hobo. All right. You get 1 point, you killed the thing. However, you came up with a ridiculous idea that the GM even went, wow, that was wild. And it saves the village, it saves the party, it didn't even involve combat, et cetera, et cetera. That can be up to 10 points, right? Well done. You used your freaking noggin. You actually role played like we're supposed to. So I award that on purpose.
Nice.
Again, there's nothing wrong. You can be a murder hobo if you want. That's fine. But you're not going to get as many points as the player that uses their brain, comes up with some type of clever teamwork. The more teamwork, the more points you get, right? You get points for showing up on time, following a minor plot, following a major plot, completing a major plot, etc., etc. So all of that adds in. Generally, you're going to get between like 4 to 10 points per session. It doesn't sound like much. However, you don't need 250,000 points for a level. There are no levels. I do have a table based on skill level, and this was more of a joke. Right? And I even write it in there. This is just for shits and giggles, right? Minus the shits part. Where like if you're, say you're a spellcaster and you've got, I don't know, 15 or higher, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, then you're a master, right? If you got 18, you're a master. It means nothing, right? If you want as a GM to weave those titles into the lore of your flavor, they're there for you.
Yeah,
go for it.
Nice.
If you want to have that one player who's all about it and everyone makes fun of them,
yeah,
go for it. However you want to do it. All right, so you get your XP. At the end of it, you spend your XP. So you have. I'll get player's guide be easier to show you because I think it's in color. So you have level cost for new skills, right? Once you've actually, that skill later on, there is a table, another table, poking fun, for XP progression based on what your total skill level is, including your stats. So total, not your base. How many XP you have to spend to increase your base by 1. And there's also, like for life points you asked, you buy 1 for 1. So if you want to spend your XP on life points, 1 for 1. You can spend XP on increasing your magic pool, which is your casting pool for wizards. You can increase that. You can buy new magics, new forces, new effects, new skills. So how a new skill works, you spend 1 point because it's new, and then whatever the actual level cost is during character creation. And then you have base level 1 in that brand new skill. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty simple. You can also buy, if the GM wants to allow it, and you've been role-playing it, you can also buy or buy off mutations. So like say you're a mutant and you decided that you're going to go take a bath in that toxic waste cesspool. You absorbed 1,200 rads and didn't die. Okay, cool. You get 4 mutation points, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a whole mechanics in there for, you need to have a high enough fitness. If your fitness is too low, obviously you're blah, 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 blah. I also have, going back to combat, additional modifiers for fire, cold, electricity, radiation damage, etc. All of that is built in. Poison is also built in. But I didn't want to go too far in the weeds. All right. Yeah. So I can't tell. Can you guys see the table?
Yep. Can see it there. Yeah.
Right. You see the XP cost. So that's your skill level and then the XP cost for reaching those levels. So up to 4 skill level, it's 1 point. Then from 5 to 9, it's 2. It's basic.
Yeah, and then it accelerates towards the end.
Nice and simple.
And like again, it goes off your total skill level. Yeah. So including bonus, or not including bonuses, but your total. And then to be nice with the new character sheets, this is my version 3. I actually have that table on your character sheet.
Got it on the bottom.
Fantastic.
Very nice.
I've got a quick question on character sheets. How many pages is your character sheet?
1. Where's my currency? That's what I'm trying to get to.
Double-sided.
Yes, I'm trying to get to the currency to show you. I don't think there we go.
There.
I actually do the currency conversion on your sheet for you as well.
All right.
Nice.
Fantastic.
All right, so there's front and back, so your core. Now, originally it was just one simple sheet, but the more we played and the more skills people got, the more magic they learned, I realized that one simple sheet wasn't cutting it. I do include that in the player's guide. But I went ahead and this is version 3, and I think this is actually a pretty damn good looking sheet, if I do say so myself, because it includes some interesting tidbits. Like I said, those charts make life easy on the player.
Yeah.
You don't have to flip open the player's guide and look for the chart. It's right there for you. You don't have to ask the GM, hey, what's the conversion? You know what the rate is. Whether or not that merchant is going to give you an honest rate, that's a different story. That's up to the GM and a reaction roll on a table. I'm sorry. So I also include the combat modifiers.
Yeah. So other side, there we go.
There we go.
Yeah, so all the reference stuff you need
is there on the
brilliant.
sheet. So what I've done, adding to it, this is your base, anyone who's not a spellcaster sheet, right?
Yeah.
And this is the base character sheet for everyone, period. So what I've done to make life easier, if you're a mutant with psionics, I have a secondary page for psionicists. Mm-hmm. And that's where you list out if you've got additional mutations, but mainly it's your psionic discipline and the psionic talents underneath those disciplines that you have. Boom. So it's like your spell chart, if you will.
Yeah.
For the spellcasters, I have a secondary spell magic sheet that is just the same. It's all of your spells, your forces and effects. And for the wizards, or spellcasters, I go one step further. I have a recipe sheet. And what the recipe is, as we get into the magic system, this term recipe is going to make sense. Right now, it won't make any sense. I can't stress enough customization.
Yeah.
The magic system was the hardest balancing act of this entire game, because the first few times we played it, it was OP, and I had to throw it in the trash and start over. And I finally found a balance. The balance is it's a hell of a lot more expensive to buy new magic and learn new magic, and even during character creation. For example, you have a sword is level cost 1. You have to buy a force, so like fire, that you're attuned with. That's 5 points. For each effect, such as attack, manipulate, etc., that's 3 points per level. So right off the bat, you're dumping most of your character points are going into like 2 effects, as opposed to the scoundrels and the barbarians that are going to have, 10, 12 skills. You're going to have like 2. What do? I sometimes make a small breeze. Shut up.
Before we move on to spells, and I'm looking forward to getting a really deep dive into how your magic system works. Recovery of hit points or life points. How does that work?
You make a fitness roll each night.
Yep.
And I actually have that on here. For every 8 hours, sorry, I hit a button. For every 8 hours of rest, the player can make a fitness roll to restore 1/2 of your fitness, round down, that night. A failed roll does nothing. A crit success heals an extra 1d6. Or there's also magic. There's also alchemy to make natural potions. There's also magic alchemy to make magic potions. So all of that exists. Remember, this is Mad Max with magic.
Yeah.
So we do have that fantasy area there. So a lot of times druids and we'll just stick with druids, will take basic alchemy. And if you can find the right plants, you can make, basic healing poultices for like D4, et cetera, And going back into the skill roll, the better you make your roll when your alchemy roll, well, that healing poultice, instead of it being a normal 1d4, maybe you got a crit success. Now it's a 1d6 or a 1d4 plus 2, et cetera, et cetera. So all of goes back to the dice rolls. Every die roll matters, no matter what you're doing.
Okay.
And I also have falling damage, drowning, all of that stuff is worked in there. Choking, slamming. That sounded like a horrible segue. Anyway, any type of combat situation you think of is in the GM's guide.
Yeah. So actually recovering hit points mid-combat.
Nope.
So nope, you can't do it. It's only outside of combat.
Actually, you can. If you've got a potion or a poultice, you step out. That's your action. Or the wizard has, the spellcaster has body magic. Body magic is manipulating body to heal you. They can do that. Or someone takes the time to drag you out of combat and apply first aid, but you're both now out of combat.
Yeah.
So the only thing during a combat turn would be potion, poultice, magic.
Okay.
And there also, you can find first aid kits out in the world that have, I don't want to say stim pack, but, stuff that will give you boost to either your skill level or, hey, like a poor baby spill, it heals you a few points, but it's on a tech side, vice magic side. So all of that is in the game.
Yeah.
So the question is, when say, for example, I was poor mage and got badly damaged and my colleague dragged me out of combat, would the healing applied take me sort of back to full, or would it just be a portion of my life force?
That depends on how much damage you took and how potent the potion, etc., or how much magic the spellcaster is pumping into it. So that's all I mean, if you only took, say you've got 6 life points and you took 5, well, that's, deadly to the spellcaster, the barbarians. So for you, it wouldn't take that much energy to heal that little wizard, as opposed to, the 30 or 40 points that the barbarian might have.
Yeah. No, that's great. So basically, it would depend on what they're actually using, what they're applying, and how badly damaged that person is, whether or not they would be sort of up and running again, sort of next turn.
Yeah. Is now a good time to segue into magic spells?
Always a good time for magic, good sir.
Oh yes,
absolutely.
It feels like it's all been leading up to this moment.
So, the magic system. Sorry, I've got a scratchy throat. My Sean Connery sucked. Anyway.
It was perfectly fine. It was perfectly fine.
That was Sean Connery? Sorry.
Mortal wound.
Oh.
You son of a bitch.
I got to go roll D6. I think I exceeded by 9, so.
I made my shit talking go by 12.
Yeah.
All right. So magic, there are 3 powers. Dun, dun, dun. Nature, on this side. I'm getting into my camera here. And technomancy. And in the middle, cosmic. So nature, obviously, is the realm of the druid. Technomancy is the realm of the wizard. Cosmic is that middle ground. Okay? So under nature, you have the elements. So you choose one. You don't get all of them. So air, earth, fire, water, animal, plant. Yeah, I think that sums up the nature. And so what underneath each power, so nature, technomancy, cosmic, think of the power as that's what your sphere is, right? That's that's the realm that you're tapping into. Beneath that, each of those things I just mentioned, like fire, air, earth, plant, animal, those are forces. So yes, you are tapping into the force, Luke. Every pun intended. All right. So the force is what you are actually attuning to. The force is where that's what you buy. All right. So you've chosen X forces under that power. So the power, generally think of it this way: druids, technomancers, anything else. All right. So that's your nature, technomancy, and cosmic. Under technomancy, you have matter, energy, losing some thought, and then necromancy. Right. So you're going to pick those. Those would be your main forces. Now, like say if you chose matter, it's always inorganic. So this means you can manipulate metal, plastic, et cetera, anything that is inorganic. Concrete. We're going back to, like, say you had a druid that has earth. They can't manipulate concrete. It's man-made. It's no longer in its natural state.
It's no longer
and the
natural.
same with a wizard can't manipulate dirt just because they have matter, because it's still in its natural state.
Where would a wooden beam fall? So you've got a log cabin. A log cabin. So trees have been felled, they've been worked and then put together as a cabin. Is that living?
That would be dead, and I would call that wood, which would fall under plant.
Would fall under plant. Brilliant.
But if it's been treated, then the GM could go, well, now it's matter because it's been chemically altered and treated, and now the druid's plant magic doesn't work. So again, that's completely up to the GM.
Yeah.
So underneath each of these forces are effects. Effects are your actual spell abilities. So the force is what you're tapping into. We'll say fire, right? Underneath that, you have summon, conjure, manipulate, attack, a few others. Summoning, conjure is usually for your technomancy, but anyway, same thing, summoning, conjure. Like say for fire, I'm going to summon fire. There's none around me. I'm going to create it, right? And my intent is to hit someone with a fireball, right? Because that's everyone's favorite thing to do. So how that works is I have to have summon fire, and I have to have attack. But I don't make two separate rolls. you combine them into one, and you spell the magic. So magic pool is your mana, if you will, your magical energy. You combine the costs. So like attack is usually 2 points base. Your conjure is usually, or summon and conjure are usually 4 points base. So now you have 6 points that you have to spend to launch a fireball. All right, it gets better. For every additional point I spend in magic pool, MP, I can hit another target. I can extend my range by whatever the factor of that range is, which is usually based on your skill level, like skill level time X yards. I can increase my damage by +1 because a base attack is only 1 point. Mm-hmm. If I want to dump another 5 points into it, now my base is 6, right? Which then we go into the die roll. I'm doing an attack, right? If I made a critical hit, I get all the results from the critical table plus that plus X damage with my fireball that just hit 3 people. But and it cost me.
When we looked at the critical tables, they were based on your damage types: blunt, pierce, and edged.
I generally put everything under blunt unless they've said I've made like icicle, edge, blah, blah, unless they're really specific.
So blunt is kind of like a concussion effect.
Yeah.
And a fireball would be this blast. You got a lot of concussion. You got a, okay.
And then after the fireball, you get the blunt for the critical hit table, but then in the GM's guide, there's additional effects for fire.
Right.
So potentially it hits them with a fireball. It's not just a one-shot thing. Your clothes might have caught on fire. You might burn for another 3 or 4 turns. Mm-hmm. Or I might have blown up the room now, the curtains next to you and they fell on you and on fire. So everything is very situation based.
Yeah.
So let me give you, again, the math example. So 6 points base, right? I've conjured fire. I'm shooting a fireball. I want to hit 3 people. That's +1 per. So now I'm up to 9, right? I wanted to do +3 damage. So now I'm up to 12 points, right? So 1 point per. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. They're within my range, so I'm not adjusting that. But the next step is for every 2 points I spend, I can get an effective +1 to my skill level for that casting. So I want a +3 to my skill level because I want to make sure I hit these sons of bitches. So we were up to 12. Mm-hmm. 2 times 3 is 6. So now 18 points for my triple fireball. That's doing extra damage. And I'm getting a oomph to my spell to make sure that I hit. And then based on my die roll, I may have just done base 6. I may have done base 9. Who knows? And of course, there's still the dodging and parrying, or not parrying, dodging and blocking would come into play. But if you really want to be, really shitty about it, you can increase the area. So instead of me hitting 3 targets, I'm going to make a 15-foot fireball. You ain't dodging or parrying or dodging or blocking anything. Have a nice day. I've just dropped it on you. And how the spell looks is completely up to the player. So if you want to shoot purple fire, you shoot purple fire. And it's up to you. The other thing to add in is the material components. So instead of being all nitnoid about that crap, I added the summon and conjure, right? So if I don't have the components, I can add that to my spell. However, we'll go back to fire. I have a campfire. I've got a lit cigarette. I don't need to conjure. I take the energy that already exists. I've now just cut my spell by 4 points because the component I needed is already present and cast.
Nice. I like that.
And the example I give in the book is, I think it's Jarek's magma ball. So say you've got fire and earth, so you can mix and match not only effects, forces. And you come up with whatever crazy shit you want. So magma ball, for example, is combining earth and fire. So it's an expensive spell because you got to conjure, blah, 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 and attack, and everything I just described. But then you're hitting someone with a ball of fire that sticks to them and melts and burns for 1d4 turns. All right, so I've just
this is where the recipes you were talking about comes in, doesn't it? Because as you're coming up with these, you put down what your recipes are, so you constantly refer to them. Is my assumption. Is that right?
You are 100% correct. So that way, if you pulled a crazy spell out of your wazoo and it was just something you thought of impromptu at the moment and it worked and you really like the results, jot that down so you don't have to think of it next time. So the reason I did the recipe book is so every spellcaster has their personalized grimoire. It's yours. You've created it. So there are no spell lists in the game at all. So what you've got is
the players create their own.
So each effect it's got like a left and right limit kind of thing. There we go. All right, so here's necromancy. Necromancy has destroy, manipulate, animate. Those are the effects, right? So under each,
it tells you the range, the
base cost, area of effect, the base range, and then a gist of what it does, right? So
that's
where
quite
you
interesting, because if you've got casting time, which is your 1d3 turns there, so it's not just you just blast away. You've actually got a length of time it's going to take you.
And I also factored in the mastery of wizardry. So based on your skill level in the early days, your verbal hand, the whole 9 yards, right? But if you hit, I think it's like 18 or something, your skill level is really high. You can cast spells by thinking. So the better you are, the more you can conceal the fact that you're a spellcaster and really mess with people. But in the beginning, grab the caster, tie his hands behind his back, you're done. Throw him in a cage, gag him, right? And your magic is done. And that's by purpose. So you can get mastery. So that's the other thing I worked into the game. Druids can have mastery over certain, like earth, wood, or earth, plant, animal, blah, blah, blah. They can have mastery. They cannot have mastery over fire. They can use it, but they can't have mastery. Where technomancers can have mastery over like energy, matter, etc., but none of the elements. I think fire might be their exception because it's destructive. So what mastery means is your base level. If you do not have mastery, you have what's called limited. Limited means your base level can only go to 3. So sure, you can use it, but you're never going to master it. If you have mastery, then obviously sky's the limit. And that's where those modifiers come in later on, where it now takes less time to cast. I now don't have to move my hands, etc., etc. And that's all worked into the magic system. The other thing is there's 3 categories. You have mastery. In other words, you can, sky's the limit. Limited, no more than 3. And restricted. Restricted means bite me, you can't learn this. Have a nice day. Right? And that's actually written, minus the bite me part, it is written, you cannot learn this. This class is forbidden. So there's none of that. A lot of people ask about multi-classing. So there is no such thing. However, comma pause / for effect, if you start the game off as, say, a scoundrel, and later on you find a grimoire, and your stats are high enough to cast spells, like so we'll say a wizard's grimoire, your intellect and your tech are 8 and 7 or higher, or you find that quest and someone teaches you, you can cast spells. You are still a scoundrel. You are not a scoundrel wizard. You are a scoundrel who happens to know how to cast fireball. And how that works, and I actually expanded on that in the compendium to make the rules very clear, because I realized I was kind of nebulous. Because you can't really put everything into the first book, and if you think you can, you're wrong. It'll be 20 years, you'll never be done.
Yeah.
So what I did is anyone that, if you don't start as like, say, a spellcaster, you are limited to limited, right? However, you don't suffer the restricted. So in other words, scoundrel can learn necromancy and animal, but they'll be limited. So it brings me back to the third type, which is cosmic. Cosmic is that in between. And each of them have limitations in mastery and restrictions, but cosmic is pretty much body, light and darkness, mind. Yeah, I think that's it. So under that is anything from mind control to illusions. Mind is actually an incredibly powerful one that most of my players neglect. I don't know why, because it is a very powerful magic. Anywho,
do you think that's because when you look at sort of AD&D where they brought in psionics, so many of us hated the way that psionics were done. I think we naturally draw away from it.
I think it's a fear of reading.
Their loss. Their loss.
Their loss. I love mind stuff.
The original psionic system was broken. I mean, I can argue. Speaking of which, psionics.
Yeah.
Psionics,
I was about to mention that. Yeah.
So the difference where like a spellcaster has to buy their force, and that costs 5 points, right? That's expensive. 3 points per base level for your effect, right? So if you wanted an effect of 3 in Conjure, that's 14 of your skill points right out the window for just being able to go, I got a box, right? So there's the balance. Mutants who have an intellect of 9 or higher, so for starting characters 9 or 10, you can qualify for psionics. However, you don't buy it. You don't have a choice. You roll on a table. You have a psionicist table, and that determines
a drinking game.
A table.
Drinking game. So there are, I think, 10 different types of psionicists.
Yeah.
You have your telepaths, and they've got different names like feeler, toucher, telepathy, blah, blah, blah. Little silly things. It all depends on how you want to flavor it. There's even a body one that's like the martial artist type thing, where you're actually kind of like Iron Fist, not the shitty TV show, the good comic book, where you're actually channeling your power. See, they laugh. You've seen it. That show sucked. Where you're actually channeling your energy into a martial. And then, mental control. There's also a healing, et cetera, et cetera. So you start off the game with that one, you roll random. That's your discipline. And until you've bought all 10 talents in that discipline, you cannot learn another. You have to master your initial discipline. After that, you can mix and match to your heart's content as long as you've got the XP to spend it and the GM says yes. But you must master, and actually I had someone ask me, so I put it in the compendium because, again, I thought it was clear, but you don't have to buy 10 in each. Like if you're a telepath and now I'm learning telekinesis, you don't have to have all 10. You're never going to have enough points for that. And the number of psionic abilities are based on your intellect. And I think that caps out somewhere around 18 or something like that. There's only so much the brain can handle. So anyway, you have to have the first 10 because you've mastered what you were born with, what the atom gave you. And then, I want this one in telekinesis. As long as it doesn't have prereqs, GM says, yes, go for it. I want this one in pyrokinesis, whatever the case may be. So you can mix match. But after that, they are treated like magic and skills. So once you have your total skill level of, like, say, 12 in telepathy, when you want to increase it, you go to that table. It's a skill. To raise it from 12 to 13 cost me 3 points. Bam. Same with magic. When your total skill level with, like, say, conjure plant is 13, you go to the table. And now 4 points to raise it to, so forth and so on. So after character creation, almost everything goes back to that one little table. And life is simple. Yeah. There are buying new effects, new talents, all that other stuff is more expensive after character creation because, that's the game balance, right? So you have to spend additional XP to learn those new things. Same with skills and so forth and so on. But all that's written in. And my XP progression section in the player's guide, I think, is a whopping 2.5 pages with a table. It's pretty easy to follow.
I just want to go back to the spell that we threw together earlier, where we were talking about you can spend the points to sort of add the earth and then add the fire, and you can create your recipe. Mm-hmm. The bit I missed, and it was probably me, is where the points come from, where you actually create this recipe together, and what sort of bucket of points and where those come from, how many you get in a day. Because I'm just thinking about, Dean will tell you, I love making spells. It's one of the things I've done since I first started role playing, and it's the sort of thing that I immediately sort of go, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. So how does that sort of pool, if you like, I'll call it the pool, how does that work? Yeah.
I glanced over it very quickly. It's called Magic Pool.
Yeah.
Or MP. So how it works, depending on whether or not you're a druid or a wizard, your base is determined by either your mana or your tech.
Yeah.
And then based on your intellect, you get bonuses for your base MP. Like, let me give you an example because I'm looking down at my guy, but he's a barbarian, so that's not going to help me. Excuse me.
Not unless he's actually sort of managed to take one of those branches and go and find a grimoire.
No, this is tragic. He's my barbarian that I've only had one other GM, and sadly he doesn't game with us anymore because he went through a divorce, whatever, that actually ran it. So I got to play in my game. So this character I rolled, he's kind of ended up being kind of like a Tarzan type. and kind of retarded anyway, but in a good way. It's fun because he was actually, when I rolled my stuff, he was raised by apes in the wild, but then raiders killed his family. So his backstory was horrible. So that's been the running joke with him. That's how I picked his name. When everyone asks his story, he hunted down the raiders and slaughtered them and then lived in Ashtown in New Rome. That's how he taught himself to speak people, because he was raised as an ape, as a baby. And in his mind, that's still his parents. But he adopted New Rome.
This is civilization, yeah.
He's Roman, yeah. And I based his speech mannerisms because I wanted something goofy off of Alfie from Peaky Blinders. So, lots of pauses and stammers, and he mispronounces names and words and shit on purpose all the time. And it's a lot of fun. So his name is Tragic, spelled with a J. And how he got that name was as soon as he would tell anyone his backstory, oh my God, that's so tragic. It's me.
Oh.
So he's a lot of fun to play. And I use him as not so much my GM player character, but he's more of my ghost in the machine. So I bring him along as an NPC. So when the group gets way over their head, Tragic comes diving in like an idiot throwing spears, right? Even though he has a pistol and finally raised his tech to 7, so he can use it, he doesn't. It's just a decoration. He throws spears and swings like a monkey. All right. I digress. All right, intellect. So minimum of 8 to be a spellcaster, right? Which gives you a +1 to your MP bonus. And that's for your int. So how it goes is starting at 8 all the way up to 20. If you have a 20 intellect, that's +10d6 to your magic pool. Right?
Cool.
Which starting character
is that rolled once?
Yes. Good question. So starting character, we'll say 10 because that's a max you can start with.
Yeah.
Usually +1d4. Now, how this table works is each time you increase your stat, which that's the other thing you can do with XP.
Yeah.
Increasing your stat costs 10 points plus the value of the new level. That was one we didn't cover. So like if I want to raise my intellect from 10 to 11, it's 21 points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and in here you would re-roll. So from 1d4, 1d6 is the next table. However, it's worked in that if you roll under, you just increase your old number by 1. You will never get less.
Okay, good.
I saw where you're going. I saw the eye. Yes, I thought of the same thing. All right, so
it does. It's like a in his head.
And the druid under the mana, they have a base MP under mana. I'm gonna try to flow this around. So like say we have 10, because we're gonna stick with that. Your base MP is 10 plus 1d4. And then again, going back to if you had an intellect of 10, that gives you another plus 1d4. So your starting MP as a druid would be 10 plus 2d4. Right? So that's your starting magic pool. Wizard is based on tech. Same int bonus, intellect bonus, but their tech gives them their starting. So a 10 is also, I know you're going to be shocked, 10 plus 1d4, the exact same number. Yeah. But wait, there's more. So all druids, and this is the difference where you come into starting as one of these characters, classes, character types, as opposed to learning it later. A wizard starts with a battery. The battery is attuned to that wizard. So this is a complete silly MacGuffin, rechargeable. However, the wizards can tap into electrical energy, power sources, and use that for magic pool. They have a battery that is equal to their starting tech. So that wizard of 10, so we had 10 plus 2d4, right? So we'll just say 15. Well, let's just give them math. We'll give them 18. Well, you also have a battery that has 10 points. So you have 28 per day, and that battery magically recharges each night. So you always have that 10 points. A druid has a totem. Same thing, but the totem, you leave it out under the stars, blah, blah, blah. It recharges each night. It's equal to your mana value. So on average, you're usually going to start with around 15 to 25 magic pools as a starting character. You can buy additional MP with XP, MOUSE. Sorry. As you progress. Also, your stats increasing, give you bonuses. Wizards can also carry around batteries, literal batteries. And like an A battery will give you, 1 or 2 mana points, but they're not rechargeable. You use it, you throw it away. right? So wizards are often scavenging, looking for that car battery to make their lackey carry for them, so they can tap into it and zort those extra points. But wait, there's more. This is the bigger reason why wizards and druids hate each other. And this is, again, shows you how much I put into the magic system and why it took me a year to beat this to death and get it to work. You can tap into the mystic leylands of the earth for extra power. Druids do what's called harnessing. It's slow. I believe it's equal to half of your mana in one turn, right? So you can keep doing it for a couple turns. You're drawing it, but that energy has to go out in one casting. Okay? You don't store it. You don't keep it. So harnessing, nothing gets hurt. It's slow. We're all in, I don't know, synchronicity and shit, right? Wizard, don't care. Screw your tree. Screw that squirrel. They do what's called ripping. And they tear the energy straight out of the ley line. It's faster. Ooh. They do draw more of it, but it also kills everything around them. And the wizard also draws in radiation from the planet. So the wizard will most likely get mutated by ripping. He'll have more energy faster than the druid, but there's a consequence. So, and again,
Alfie's decided to join us.
Yeah.
All about the nature balance. Wizards are all about the power balance with them on top. And wizards are, merging of
about the worlds and
And the last type of magic I'm going to get into are my necromancers, which are they're so misunderstood. Necromancy in this game doesn't mean you're evil. And by the way, there are no alignments in this game. I actually have a blurb in the beginning of the game about alignments. Good, bad, indifferent, doesn't matter. Because
it's how you role play your character. And it'll all be dependent on the situation. Because someone could be good at heart, but you put them in a certain situation and they may actually do
horrible things
that aren't necessarily good.
Or what might be good in one society is the epitome of evil in another.
Yeah.
So that's why I left out law, chaos, neutrality, good, evil. It's all a state of mind. So you play your character.
I had a question. Because you mentioned your cosmic and we started and we were going through that. What about gods?
Depends on your. I do have religion, but I don't tap into it heavily in the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm going to get into it when I start talking about phase 2. That is going to be a bigger factor when I write dystopian mythos, which, by the way, is going to be what's left of Europe.
Ooh.
And is going to be high fantasy. I'll come back to that later. I like the Cylons. I actually have a plan.
Excellent. We like that.
So what was the original question?
He's impressed. So I asked about the gods and the fact that you've got your cosmic, and I was wondering if the gods were linked to cosmic.
So in the initial book, I write, depending on where you're from, their views on religion. It's not a big deal. To be honest, most of them are more interested in surviving day to day. However, your druids are going to see nature, Gaia, etc. So think more of your pagan, more of that type of route. They're in touch with it, which is why the Fae befriend druids. And also Sumerica, if it wasn't for the Fae, and then you don't find this out till later on in the books, the Fae are actually what helped Sumerica rise up. And they also made it very clear, you won't use tech or we will go away. And it's because of the Fae that magic is in here, because they actually done that with the lore. So a couple hundred years after the war, the Fae returned because tech was gone, right? That's what drove them out to begin with. And their charter was to see if they can heal shit, see what's going on, what's still surviving, because they had been watching from their realm, like every century. Hey, what's going on? Kind of like a bad sitcom. They went to different places and found out that radiation is incredibly deadly to the Fae. They suffer like 25% additional damage from radiation effects because they're magic. So when they came and started trying to heal the land, that influx of magic changed the world itself.
Yeah.
So they were able to heal parts of Sumerica, parts of Alamex, but then they had to retreat to the deep woods in Sumerica because everywhere else killed them. They couldn't last without protective garment for more than a few days. outside of those two areas. So in the deep woods, which is if you can ever find it, because the woods itself is actually alive and it changes. It's like, look, a pat. Hey, where'd that fucking tree come from? Right? It's on purpose. And within the deep woods, which is Atonus, whatever, New Atonus they call it, you've got elves, druids, pixies, leprechauns, sprites, dryads, nymphs, the whole 9 yards, but there's only so many of them. Now you find out in Vikings and Robots, there was a second group of Fae. They didn't go to North America. They went to Europe. And their job was not to cleanse the land of technology or to heal the land. Their job was to cleanse it of the taint of humanity and technology. So they did, but they were a little too thorough. So once they got done doing what they were doing, the leader of the elves, said, okay, we're ready to come back. And the home realm went, no, you are way too militant and you can stay there. And they did the same thing to the scientists that went to Summerica. They're like, you guys have been corrupted by the humans and radiation. We're blocking the realm. So now the Fae that are here have been stranded. Now the Fae on North America have accepted it because they befriended the Summericans, and they take each person on a case by case. Now, if you're hunting Fae or whatever, of course, they're going to turn evil on you and destroy you. Otherwise, they're happy in their little pocket. They've got families, right? Ta-da. Leprechauns fuck with people. That's what they do. They're all there. In Vikings, I also introduce a very rich hunting group that is going after unicorns at the fabled Pegacorn. Yes, it actually exists. The winged unicorn. Anyway, so here we have Europe, what's left of it, because remember, almost everything was blown to shit, from meteors, earthquakes, tidal waves, nuclear war, etc., etc. So only parts of the continent still exist. The Fae there, they had pushed the humans into one little teeny tiny settlement, where the Elven king, who yes decreed himself king, went, okay, stop. We're not going to wipe them out completely. We're going to let them stay there and know who their betters are. So the king has retreated to, yes, Great Britain. Sorry, I almost went Michael Moorcock and said Grand Britain. I'm a huge Elric fan. Michael Moorcock is one of my heroes. Anywho, so the Elven Council is in Great damn it, I did it again. Great Britain. And you have the channels, the islands that connect Ireland and whatnot. Those are gone. So you've still got, Ireland and Scotland and whatnot, but the land masses are now gone. It's just water. And huge areas of like Russia and other places obviously are destroyed. The dwarves do what they do. They dug. And the dwarves obviously took over Scotland. All jokes intended. Right? So they dug and they've pretty much created Moria, for lack of a better word, under Scotland. Right? And whenever the Elf King says that we need this, they give him this. Right? They're like, whatever, you'll get your tithes, go away. Quit bothering us. We're building shit. And on the mainland, so the rest of Europe, you've got halflings, sprites, pixies, nymphs, dryads, orcs, which I call them Fae cousins, by the way. I introduced them in Cowboys and Mutants. Goblins, kobolds, etc., 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 living in different villages. And there's different weird terrain, like there's mist that covers everything. Kind of think of Ravenloft. So there's the Transylvania kind of thing. And yes, there's undead. And there is a place that's ruled by a lich queen and her vampire husband. So all of this stuff is going to tie into it. What I'm doing is old school, old lore Fae. So I'm tapping into hundreds of pages of European folklore. And that is what I'm basing my Fae on. That on top of a little bit of Grimm's fairy tales for good measure. And my own. So Atonus is actually my homebrew fantasy world that I created in D&D back in like 1981. And I've used it through every system. D&D, Palladium, RuneQuest, GURPS, etc., etc. And it's always evolved over the last 40 years. So why wouldn't I take something I've already created? I take the names, the gods. So I'm actually segueing into the deities. So in the base version, sure, they worship some gods, but they really don't care. The gods are like, yeah, whatever. It's more like a Conan type thing,
Yeah.
I seldom play to him. He doesn't listen. So, however, in Europe, the gods are actually there. And I'm going to use my fantasy deity pantheon that I've used for the last 40 years. And that's what's going to tie in, because they've been cut off from their own realm. So the elves and whatnot, they're pissed. They're pretty much urinated on their own lineage, their history, and they've created their own. And they're much more kind of a cross between the Melanomenaeans of Michael Moorcock and poison elves. They've devolved into, they have towers of gems and whatnot where they do a lot of hallucinogens, a lot of magic, don't give a shit about anything else. They've got their armies that go out and keep things, and their hippogriff armies and stuff that go out and patrol. The village is going to do whatever they want as long as the king gets his money every month. Pretty much it. And that's the way it's going to be up. So each of the areas is going to be kind of an autonomous collective. Since we're doing the British thing, I had to make a Monty Python joke at least once throughout there. But each area is also going to be drastically different. So instead of where in North America we have your evolution tables are based on radiation, right? So that's your mutations. I'm creating a new system where it's going to be magical, because with the amount of magic that they released to destroy technology, similar effects. However, you're not going to have a bunch of mutants. Mutants will actually be incredibly rare. But you are going to have your evolution tables magically induced, like you've got gold color eyes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So same process of character creation, little different results. And I'm also introducing about a dozen new nationalities, so actual races for high fantasy. So if you want to play a dwarf, an elf, a pixie, et cetera, I'm writing all those up. And also the human, there's one settlement called Pergerac. And this goes into the gods. So the Fae all have their own deities, which is mostly nature. And the old gods, as according to the humans, are like the god of war, the god of weather, et cetera, et cetera. That's what the humans worship. And since magic is going to be incredibly high in this area, the old fantasy gods that have been gone because faith and religion have been, the mythos have been gone. But now that gateway is opened. So yes, they're going to take an interest and they're going to fuck with people, kind of like the old Greek fables. So high fantasy, so I'm really flipping the switch, all the same core mechanics, but instead of this being more tech, radiation, blah, 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 Mad Max, like I've done with North America, it's going to be more,
it's going to be more
like 500 years later if the Fae took over.
Pagan Fae, it's going to be very much, I like that.
Yeah. I'm introducing portals in the new ones, like Monster Island, Dystopian Down Under. I tap on portals a few places, and I actually write up the Hollow Earth in Dystopian Down Under. So the Hollow World. But the portals only go in and around. They don't go out. You got to find a rocket ship for that. But with that, so that's kind of your way of, you can randomly pop to different areas. And during phase 2 and phase 3, what I'm doing is I'm writing whole new genres. So like but each of them has the same timeline. So dystopian mythos is what would Europe look like if the Fae returned and did a completely different plan, but it's still the same 500 years.
Yeah.
Right? But what's it look like? High magic, low tech. I think steam is going to be as high as it goes. And then I'm going to have 2 little islands in Japan. I've already picked them that were preserved by domes. And that's going to, right now I'm calling it supers. I don't know what I'm going to call it. Some pulp supers, or I don't know what the hell I'm going to call it. But it's going to be their tech stopped in like the 50s. So that very kind of a Blade Runner noir look to it with a splash of anime and the 30s and 40s pulp. And I'm going to introduce power groups, so mutation groups, as superheroes.
All right. Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have your pulp detective mecha anime crazy shit in Japan, right? These 2 little islands, lots of gangsters, and the corporation is going to be in charge. So again, a little bit of Shadowrun with a system that is good. Take that, Shadowrun.
That sounds very much like it brings to mind the comic The Watchmen.
Yes.
Yeah, it's that kind of a feel, that kind of a genre. Yeah.
Also kind of like wild cards.
Yeah.
So because you're going to roll randomly. So again, I haven't worked out all the mechanics. That one's down the road. The ones that are coming out first, I just finished the draft of Dystopian Down Under, which introduces the Hollow Earth, the portals, and dinosaurs and kaiju, which is a lot of damn fun, by the way. There's also a rocket ship
Oh, wow.
It's pre-programmed to go to Mars because the next world book after Down Under is going to be Mythos, is my plan. I've got the problem is putting all of my notes together. I have so much shit. After that, the third world book is Dystopian Space, which is Mars. And so what each of these looks like is, again, same timeline, but Mars is they escaped the Earth. And for the last 500 years, they've been terraforming. So there's not a whole lot left because a lot of them died in space because some of them were in stasis, et cetera, because, it takes time. Pockets of Mars will have breathable atmosphere where the terraforming worked. Also pockets where the change the magnetic poles so the atmosphere actually stays in. Others won't. So at others, if you're not wearing a suit, you're, dead. Have a nice day. Your eyeballs shoot out. And I'm going to have where they've woken up ancient aliens that are the indigenous mutants, if you will. And so the whole thing. So think if Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, Battlestar Galactica, and every glorious sci-fi 60s through 90s had a wild party and threw up in one area, that's what my dystopian space is going to be. So it's going to be a lot.
Certainly looking forward to that. I think that's absolutely phenomenal. And I think we've covered the majority of what we wanted to. I think what would be great, and I'm going to put this out here now, is in a bit of time when you've got your next one out. I think it'd be great to catch up again, because what I'd like to do is have a look at some of the different creatures you've got in sort of your American base versus your European based versus what you've got in your Down Under and your sort of Japan sort of area. And I'd love to sort of just do a deep dive on creatures, because I reckon we'll probably cover another 3 hours just talking about your different creatures. Probably. And I think that would be phenomenal. So I'll reach out to you about that. But I think this has been absolutely phenomenal. And you've got such an imagination.
Thank you.
And seeing all of this come together. And it's great because I see very similar to how you approach things, very similar to how Dean does. So some of the nuances and the things that you talk about, it's great. I think game designers are all sort of birthed from the same sort of world of we've got to sort of create these stories and build around it, and I love that approach. But we've really absolutely and I think from what I can see is you're happiest when you're bringing worlds alive, which I just think is phenomenal. So I want to thank you for sharing all of that with us. It's been absolutely superb, and I think we should do a drinking game as well. I think that'd be a definite one we could do. It could be really good fun. But yeah, the game sounds superb.
I get a real. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, Tony.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get to actually win one of your pieces, and I've downloaded it. I purposefully, because we wanted to do this, haven't fully read it because I was like, I don't want to put myself into it before we start these conversations, because when we're doing stuff like, something I can't remember. I've purposefully not. I've downloaded it. It's saved, ready for me to dig into it.
The Noel, the recent one.
I think I've got that. I've got two. I've got the Noel, and the one before that. So I will be reading those and delving into them. But I just wanted to thank you, Dean. What were you about to say? Because you were about to say something.
Well, I think Tony, you were about to come in before. I'm happy to finish on my statement. So. Tony, you were about to say something?
What I was going to say is maybe one of these days we figure out a timeline where I get my ass out of bed and we can actually do a character creation session and maybe run a little bit of game.
Do you know what? That sounds absolutely superb. I was going to kind of close this with, I get real a little bit of Fallout in here. I get a little bit of Wild Wild West. Have you seen that film? It's a terrible film, but I love it. And
I actually own the original TV show.
Oh, wow. I just get these. It's a number of genres that just come crashing together to create this, what appears to be an amazing world. And yes, I'd love to create a character. You truly roll up a character in this system. Some choices you got control of, others you just got to see where the dice roll. What does fate give you, and then go from there. And I like it. I really do like it. So thank you so much for your time, Tony. And we're definitely going to have to arrange when Dystopian Down Under is being released to have another one of these, because I'd like to talk about the Kaiju. I'd like to focus on the creatures. What are the new creatures in this expansion, and what are the creatures like in Dystopian Dawn? It's the one area we haven't quite covered, and I think it'd be perfect to cover it there.
Well, with the creatures, I'm actually glad to do that, because with each of the new books, I do history. So like the second book is called the Secrets of Sacred Mountain. I'd met a guy when I was the first time I took conventions in Phoenix, and he and his father used to travel around teaching native lore verbally. And we started talking, because I was at the time I hadn't written the second book yet, and I was futzing with ideas. I think I was thinking of like Escape from New York or some shit. And he's like, have you thought about, doing Native American? I was like, honestly, no. It's like, we are in Arizona. That's a valid point. I don't have an argument, damn it. So we started bouncing ideas back. And what I ended up doing was the Secrets of Sacred Mountain. It takes place in kind of a unaffiliated area of like the tri-corners between three of the major territories in the Black Hills Mountains. And it's an amalgam of various tribes that have survived for the last 5 centuries deep underneath the Crazy Horse Monument. And the history behind that is the elders got their best and the brightest from like 4 or 5 different tribes, brought them together and created a new one. And from there, it's obviously low-tech, high magic druids. From there, we delved into the mythos and lore of creatures. So all of the monsters that are introduced in that book are based on Native American lore. Now, with that, I would send it to him, because it still has to have that game flair and that, post-apocalyptic flair. But I would send everything to him for a sanity board to make sure that I was respectful to the culture before I included it. And he loved it. Like, even their language is kind of an amalgam of like Hopi, Cherokee, and no shit, I can't remember. Anyway, but I actually researched languages. I went online, had databases all over the place where I was to get the correct names and blah blah blah, and merged multiple cultures into creating a new tribe called the Asunke, which Asunke, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, was Crazy Horse's actual name. So the tribe is named after him, and they have their own evolution, the whole 9 yards, and they're protected by a magical radiation fog. So if you can survive making it through the mist to find the mountain, you might befriend them or get killed by them. Anyway, so that was that one. And I did the same for Down Under. I just researched Australian plants that are horrible. Fucking Jesus,
the whole
insects.
Everything,
oh my God.
Everything in Australia
Everything
tries
wants
to kill you.
And then all of the kaiju, the names of them, because I wanted kaiju to begin with, are based on Aboriginal folklore. So like the bat, the ape, etc., etc. And the new nationality I introduced in that is the Aboriginal. So, and there's also, I have, if the GM wants to, Atarkus, which is the Hollow Earth or Hollow World, if they want to let them start from there. So like most of the game books, I introduce new nationalities, and it's up to the GM whether they want to let them play it.
We're going to have to send Tony a copy of the Mabinogion.
I don't know what that is.
It's the Welsh folklore.
Please.
And it's all about the Fae. So it's all of the Welsh folklore about the Fae and how all of that comes together. It's absolutely fascinating. It's all the old Welsh tales that have been passed down over the. You'd love it. You really would.
Well, when I was doing all my, like I said, I probably have over 100 pages of reference material that I've pulled from different sites on pagan, Welsh, even Russian and Scandinavian folklore. And then,
I
of course,
used to
I
love
have a copy
Russian
of
folklore when
Grimster.
I was a kid. Yeah, Russian
That's some,
folklore as a kid, I loved it.
some
It's
scary
freaky.
shit.
Yeah,
But that's what I'm basing the monsters. So it'll be a flair of fantasy. So you can have your trolls, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah.
But a lot of the new creature, or all the new creatures that are being introduced, are from folklore, as well as the new player nationalities are from the Fey races.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to follow up with that, so we can have a look at what Down Under is all about, and then have a good deep dive into the creatures, which we couldn't get around to today.